everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer today. Hopefully you guys are doing well, faring well with that solar eclipse in Aries. Wanted to put together a video previewing Jupiter's transit through the sign of Taurus. I think everybody could use a little bit of good news today, given the current cosmos. Do me a favor, if you're new to my channel, or even if you have been subscribed, check the button below, make sure you're subscribed, give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. I've heard a number of people say that they saw that they were unsubscribed, so I don't know what's going on. Obviously, Google may not be too fond of some of my content, but that's okay. Make sure that you click that button below, and any interaction with the channel, also sharing is caring, really helps with the channel growth. I appreciate it. If you guys like my work, you guys can always join me for my lives. You can join my memberships or donate to my channel to keep some of this content coming out. So we're going to take a look at Jupiter going into the sign of Taurus. This is going to be a fun transit. I'm looking forward to the next year of more abundance. That's really what I'm hoping this is going to bring for all of the 12 signs. With my lecture today, I'm going to start by giving you guys all of the dates, including the retrograde periods and when to be mindful of the retrograde, the degrees that this is going to be affecting specifically within the sign of Taurus. I will also be touching on some of the archetypal themes of Jupiter and how Jupiter and Taurus may manifest for all of us out in the world. And then I'll touch a little bit on how to make the most of this transit, and I'm going to take you guys through the next year and show you all of the hot zones when Jupiter is making some stuff happen. And then we'll wrap up this lecture today by talking a little bit more about how to work with this. I'm going to give you guys some recommendations for bringing in more abundance in your life. I'm also going to touch on where this is going to be affecting each and every one of the 12 rising signs, and I'll give you my predictions for that. So make sure you wait all the way and watch through till the end. All right, so let's start first with my my grab bag of dates. You guys know how this works. I always give you a lot of stuff, and I will move through the chart as we move through some of these dates. But we're a little bit early. We are actually not going to see Jupiter ingress into the sign of Taurus until May 16th, 2023. So we're just about a little less than a month shy of this transit. But the reason why I wanted to put this video out today was I wanted to get ahead of the curve, start talking about what to be prepared for as we see Jupiter change signs. I also thought today was a really great day to put out this video because it's really going to be highlighting some of the themes that we're going to see with Jupiter's ingress, and that'll be planets moving into Taurus, coming into contact with the North Node, right? Collectively moving into growth in the future, physical growth, and then the growing pains and the challenges and the need to overcome fear with those squares to Pluto. So some of you guys are still feeling the solar eclipse depending on where you are because it happened so late last night. As we get into the morning today, we're still experiencing the sun coming into a square with Pluto. The moon also moved into Taurus, came in to touch the North Node and squared Pluto. And it's been an interesting eclipse, right? It feels a lot of like endings and having to clear things out with that energetic degree, which is making room for something new. So a lot of sweet and salty aspects in the skies right now. But you guys may feel something similar, right? When we see the Jupiter ingress. So let's go ahead and move forward. I want to bring you to the very first date that we're going to be taking a look at, and that's going to be March 16th, 2023. Now on the 16th, this is when we're going to see Jupiter move into the sign of Taurus. And with some of these transits, like when I see, you know, Jupiter move into Taurus just shortly after the moon's going to come through, I think when I saw several like North Node aspects or retrograde aspects, the moon will move through Taurus with a lot of these transits. So I do feel like collectively, with the moon being in its exaltation, very close to the North Node, and then when we see these planetary shifts, we're all going to feel it. We're going to see physical representation of some of this growth. So that's what you guys want to keep in mind when we're talking about Taurus, because it is an earth sign. So a lot of this growth, abundance, expansion is going to be very physical. It's going to be very literal. So the dates that we're going to see Jupiter in the sign of Taurus is going to be from May 16th, 2023 until May 25th, 2024. Now, Jupiter retrogrades at one time period throughout the year, but generally Jupiter spends about 1 year in each sign. That's why we see Jupiter come back to any given sign every 12 years. So if we go back 12 years ago, you guys can take a look at what was taking place in your life while Jupiter was going through Taurus back then. I'm actually a fan of some of the aspects. While the Jupiter square Pluto is uncomfortable, the conjunctions to the North Node is expanding our future, expanding our abundance, really showing us where we can build towards the future. And unlike the last several years where we saw some really gnarly, Saturn, Uranus squares and eclipses that were square Saturn or conjunct Uranus, throughout this transit, something that I really like is that we are going to see Jupiter in a sextile to Saturn in Pisces. So there is going to be some support going on there. I like that we're going to have Saturn in a more Jupiterian, Neptunian sign, helping us keep the faith and also focus on what we do when we're alone, really helping us expand into our consciousness and create the life that we want to live. So it's wonderful for those of you guys who are really big into manifestation, abundance, all that fun stuff. This is an energy that can be very supportive when you have Saturn that's in a harmonious aspect like this to a planet that wants growth. Now, the degrees that are going to be affected throughout 2023, okay, we'll talk about all the way into 2024, but specifically this year, we're going to see Jupiter move from 0 degrees of Taurus to about 15 degrees of Taurus. So if you have anything, sun, moon, rising, or personal placements from 0 to 16 degrees, you have planets or angles on the path of this particular Jupiter transit. Next year, we will see Jupiter move from 6 to 29 degrees of Taurus. So don't worry if you've got something, within the first 10 degrees, you're gonna get an extended kind of period of Jupiter transits. You're gonna see a retrograde go back over things maybe a couple times. And then next year, 6 to 29 degrees before Jupiter makes its ingress then into Gemini. So for most of this year, Jupiter is actually going to spend a large chunk of time within the first decan of Taurus. And the first decan of Taurus is ruled by Venus. Those of you guys who don't know, Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac. It has associations with the second house. It deals with, obviously, the planet Venus, but more about personal values, possessions, self-esteem, ownership, and also finances. The energy of Taurus or the second house is I possess, right? So it's the things that we have, the money that we have, the food that we have, but also it's about having all of the creature comforts that we need in order to feel safe and secure. It is one of the foundational kind of signs, the very first fixed sign of the zodiac that wants to make sure that we get everything that we need so we can then thrive. It's a hardworking sign. It's fixed, so it is fixed in its ways. It can have a tendency to be stubborn or possessive. And it also has connections to relationships. Maybe not as much as Libra, but values in relationships and resources in relationships. And having, the nodes in the North Node in Taurus and South Node in Scorpio, we're learning a lot about our own personal needs, our own personal resources, and the effect that it has on other people. So I anticipate that as planets move through Taurus and as we see Jupiter go through Taurus, especially between now and July while the North Node is there, we're going to see just an increased focus, right? Because Jupiter wants to magnify on some of these topics like banking, resources, but also land, right? Building, development, architecture, design, all of these more kind of Taurus related topics. Now, the second part of the transit, briefly, we will see from 10 to 15 degrees. Jupiter will move into those degrees before it retrogrades later in the year. and that's going to be more a mercurial period. So if you guys know a little bit about the decans, each particular of the 10 degrees of each decan has a flavor, okay? So the first degree, or the first decan, or the first 10 degrees of any given sign, it's going to be ruled basically by its ruling planet to that sign, and it's going to be the purest form of that particular energy. I think when we move to the mercurial side, I think we're going to hear more while, you know, the Jupiter transit is around 10 to 15 degrees about innovations, systems, technology. I think we're definitely going to hear a lot about digital banking, central banking, digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, because we have Jupiter in a sign that's about finances. And Jupiter has this all-encapsulating kind of global, making things bigger type of quality. It magnifies things. So we're going to hear a lot about the big banks. We're going to hear a lot about the banking system. We're going to hear a lot about the central banks and about certain banks making more money, getting larger, and developing or possessing more. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. But because of the connection within the second decan of Mercury, I think we're going to see opportunities for options. I think we're going to start realizing that we don't all have to get funneled into one way of thinking about our finances and our resources. We don't all have to shuffle into one particular bank. I think we're going to have a lot more chit chat and communication about diversifying our assets and our resources and trying to find ulterior options to not feel like we're kind of getting trapped into the rat race financially. Next year in 2024, yes, when we start, you know, the year, actually it's really interesting, right around the 30th of December of 2023, Jupiter goes direct, and I believe on January 1st, Mercury goes direct. So we have a lot of planets going direct right at the beginning of the new year, which I like. It means that I think we're feeling like we're getting back on track. But next year will be 6 to 29 degrees. So as we're moving into the third decade in the spring, that is going to be more connected to Saturn, okay? So the third decan of Taurus is Saturn. So it's about that things kind of locking in, being cemented, being, you know, committed to. So this may feel like a period this year where there's like a lot of flexibility and trying things out and seeing what works, different ways that we're spending our money, different ways that we're managing food costs and where we're getting our food from. And then finally next year, I think we're going to kind of get into the groove of some of these things that we've been learning. And then we might find that we're committing more to these new financial changes, these new ways of eating, new ways of also learning about resources, and learning about our planet. So I'm curious to see what happens. In my mind, there's also been this buildup that's coming, knowing that Jupiter and Uranus are going to be meeting next year, and they're going to come into a conjunction. And that's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to read you guys the Sabian symbols, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about all of these particular conjunctions and aspects as we get closer throughout the next couple of months. Now, in general, in astrology, you know, Jupiter is known as the planet of expansion. So it represents growth and abundance and optimism. It is one of the benefic planets in astrology, and it's also the largest planet in our solar system. So that's why it has that connection to, you know, growth and enthusiasm or good fortune. It generally has a positive influence on our life, but you guys have to keep in mind that Jupiter will magnify, right, whether it is good or bad conditions. And right out the gate, we're going to start this Jupiter transit with a conjunction to the North Node, which is about positive growth towards the future, but is square to Pluto. So there are going to be things that come up that threaten our growth or maybe stunt our growth, or could potentially scare us, especially when it comes to our finances and our resources. And a lot of these situations are going to feel overly inflamed, especially from today moving forward. As we see the sun and the moon square Pluto, you guys are going to see this build up really between now and mid-May of next month. Just the increasing pressure with the Pluto squares when it comes to the financial and the banking situations. In general, in a birth chart, Jupiter is going to represent the area of our life where we see growth, right? And where through taking chances and either learning more, expanding, traveling, or growing, we end up bringing in more abundance or more good luck. Jupiter also has associations with beliefs. values, philosophical outlooks, as well as our ability to find meaning in the purpose of life. So everybody's going to have a different Jupiter placement in their natal chart. If you happen to have Jupiter in the sign of Taurus, then you're going to be having your Jupiter return at some point in the next year. And like I said, if you have your placement, especially like, let's say Jupiter or any other planet, really between like 6 and 16 degrees, you're going to have Jupiter hit it several times. So you're going to have a couple times to kind of get that worked out and get it right. What I like about Jupiter is that it does generally indicate good luck, good fortune, but also generosity and the willingness to help other people. And I think that that is going to be a huge theme, especially as we start seeing Jupiter get closer to Uranus. I do see that as an opportunity to bring wealth to the masses. While it's in an earth sign, it can be about physical wealth, resources, riches, sure, but it can also be about feeding other people. It can also be about teaching other people. It can also be about lending to others and you know, grassroots programs of fundraising and other things where we're going to start to see that there's an opportunity to bring abundance to everyone. And I think that the way that we're looking at what it means to be wealthy is going to be radically transformed with the conjunctions to Uranus. I don't think it's going to be so much about materialism and greed. I think it's going to be more about what we can grow, and that the ability to grow our own food or to be more self-governed is actually going to be the key to freedom. So we'll see a lot more about that. We're already starting to see it kind of out in the world. I think it's really interesting what happened over in Europe, where we see the farmers essentially created their own party. Okay, and then they ended up having, I'm trying to remember where this was, forgive me, it's somewhere in Europe. I'm sure one of you guys will comment and remind me where it was. I don't want to say where because I'm going to botch it, but they ended up running and they won. So now we've got farmers that are essentially taking over. I want to say, I think it's like the Dutch party. I don't know. Let me know. Comment below if you know what I'm talking about. But now they have basically won, and now they're coming in and they're going to be filling seats in office, and now they're going to have a little bit more of a say of like what's going on in terms of like the rules and the regulations when it comes to farming and agriculture. So I think we're going to see more of that, especially because the archetype for Taurus could be the builder, it could be the architect, it could be the farmer, it could be the baker, the designer, the florist, the jeweler. So we're going to hear a lot more about some of these like artisan type of people. And I think we're also going to hear a lot more about people who work with conservation and the planet, and also with food and agriculture. In general terms, Jupiter moving into the sign of Taurus, okay, so this is the first time that we've seen this in 12 years. So if I take you guys back 12 years ago and we look at the last time Jupiter was in Taurus, it looks like this was taking place. It looks like it was taking place like June of 2011 through about June of 2012. Okay, so you can think back to what was going on back in that time period for you. But that was the last time that we had that particular cycle. Just giving you guys some food for thought. And like I said, Jupiter is about it's about every 12 years. So every 12 years, it's going to go through that part of your chart. Even if you're not a Taurus, you don't have any Taurus placement, it's going to magnify that particular house. Now, it's going to be a little bit different this go round because the North Node is there, and also we have Uranus there. So you are definitely going to see some kind of increased growth or maybe good luck or prosperity in that area of your life. You are also going to see next year some radical changing and transforming events that's kind of propelling you into the future and learning how to bring in more resources in that area of your life. Jupiter and Taurus in general, I think, is going to have more of an effect, obviously, on financial prosperity because Jupiter is associated with money and wealth, material possessions. But when it's in Taurus, it brings financial prosperity and abundance in a multitude of different ways. So for some of us, it can be a good time to invest assets, right? Start a business venture. But we also want to watch for overindulging, overspending, and overfixation on material items, and just like overdoing it when it comes to self-care. I believe that Jupiter and Taurus can also bring opportunities for increased creativity, because Taurus has associations with art and also with beauty. When Jupiter is in Taurus, it enhances our artistic and creative expression. So it can be a really good time to pursue artistic projects and explore new forms of artistic expression. In particular, Taurus has connections to some of the more traditional crafts. So I think of like, you know, fine painting and classical music and sculpture, things that are going to be considered, you know, more classic. But I'm also keeping in mind that the North Node is there, so we're changing and transforming what it means to be beautiful, what it means to be abundant, what it means to be fulfilled. We also see that Uranus is there, and in recent years, we've seen like this uptick with NFTs and digital art and different ways that we can be looking at collecting or even keeping art. So I definitely think that this transit is going to be interesting because we might find that there is some really prominent artists that are coming out on the scenes that are going to be developing what might actually be some very valuable and some very famous works of art might be emerging over the next year or so with this transit. Something else that we see with all of the fixed signs, but I think Jupiter coming into this one in particular, is we're going to see increased stubbornness and resistance to change. Because Taurus is a fixed sign, which means it's resistant to change. It likes to stay in its comfort zone. And when Jupiter is in Taurus, it can exacerbate this tendency and make individuals more stubborn and resistant to change. Taurus is going to kind of want to dig in its heels and go slow and slow down, and it doesn't want to leap into some of the changes that might be coming inevitably. One thing I would say is you want to be careful here because there can be a sense of missed opportunities and stagnation. So we want to keep things moving when planets go through Taurus. I think the added pressure of the square from Pluto, I think, is going to be radically changing transformations of goals and friendships and things out in society, and power struggles, quite frankly, that are pushing some individuals to really show up and make the physical changes, make the financial changes, and also really show up and start showing some of their natural talent, and doing a lot of work when it comes to self-esteem and realizing that we deserve more, right? We deserve more than just crumbs. We deserve more than just being told to just accept what we're being given and be thankful. We deserve more than to be, you know, working our lives away just to live paycheck to paycheck. So for those of you guys who have, you know, creative hobbies or talents, if you're an amazing artist or creative person and you have yet to tap into that, some of this pressure from the Pluto square may, you know, come beaming down on you, but it'll allow you to really show some of this talent and put it to good work. I do believe that Jupiter in Taurus is going to have us focusing more increasingly on sensuality and pleasure-seeking tendencies. Because Taurus is associated with sensuality and pleasure, while Jupiter is in the sign, it can intensify these tendencies, leading to overindulgence and lack of self-discipline. It's important to maintain balance and moderation to avoid negative consequences. So this can be overspending, this can be greed, this can be lusting after things or people. This can be overindulging in food, this can be overindulging in travel. So any of the Taurus-related things kind of fuse together with Jupiter's themes, and we'll see like a tendency to overdo it. And then finally, materialism and possessiveness, because Taurus is known for attachment to material possessions. When we start to see, especially some of the Pluto squares, we can see kind of the shadow side of these archetypes come out. We can see more issues with possessiveness. With Jupiter in Taurus, it can definitely bring these tendencies front and center, leading to a focus on material wealth and reluctance to let go of possessions or relationships. So it's important to cultivate a sense of detachment and gratitude to avoid becoming too attached to material possessions. I think that is the gift from the from the Jupiter square Pluto, that there are some things that are inevitably ending or changing or transforming, and it's pushing us to grow and become more aware. Yes, some of us will glob on to our physical habits and patterns as a means to kind of cope. So we do want to be mindful of where we are going too far into the self-soothing tendencies with physical touch or food or spending to feel like we need to kind of fill a void or cope with something that's going on and not really dealing with it head on. Now, like I said about Jupiter being in an earth sign, this is going to be about physical resources. So I think we're going to hear more about how much land is available, increased cost of land, you know, especially agricultural land and undeveloped land going up. I think we're going to hear a lot more about gas because Uranus is in Taurus. I think we're going to hear a lot more about food. Likely we are going to hear that there is probably going to be increased spending or increased prices because the North Node wants to make things bigger, and I anticipate we're going to be facing this probably until at least July. So none of these, you know, price gouging situations at the grocery store or these, you know, interest rates, I don't think they're going to come down, just frankly speaking, until we start to see planets moving away from that North Node in Taurus, and then the North Node shifts into Aries in July. I think also there is going to be this fixation on beauty and appearance and what we have or what we possess to look wealthy or look rich or look attractive. So name brands and people really wanting to have stuff that's kind of like status markers are going to be a huge theme throughout these transits. But also valuable possessions. So, you know, art, design, knowledge of food, resources, finances. These are all going to be things that are very valuable. I think people who have something to teach in these areas, especially people who know a little bit about, you know, financial dealings. If you're somebody who's getting into teaching financial courses, or maybe you're teaching people how to better utilize their assets or set up a business or manage their spending or budgeting, these can be some really interesting ways that I think people are going to be making money, because Jupiter is about this higher knowledge and awareness, and it's like the guru planet. So we're going to see a lot of people who really, really know how to trade stocks, or they really know how to jump in and invest in things to, you know, make money while the market is down, or people who are also going to be making money within the global markets, because Jupiter can be about the global stuff. But I also think that if you're like a chef, or if you're a butcher, if you're involved in agriculture, if you know how to garden, if you're a artisan baker, if you know how to make jewelry, there is a lot of money to be made in these trades, because you can go and teach others how to do these things. So we might see some of these particular trades and occupations kind of blow up. Taurus obviously is the bull. So we may see increased prices for meat and maybe even some dairy, because it's connected to cows. Price of leather may go up. We might see the price also of just cattle in general going up, and increased food costs and things of that nature. And Venus is going to be the planet to watch this year. So to an extent, we've already been watching Venus quite a bit, because the North Node is in Taurus. I remember telling you guys that because that's the ruling planet for the North Node, really until the North Node changes signs in July, we have to be watching what Venus does. So if Venus makes an opposition to Pluto here soon, if it, you know, squares Jupiter, if it trines Saturn, all of these things are all reverberating back to the North Node and now Jupiter. So throughout this next year, from May of 2023 to May of 2024, Venus is the dispositor, okay, all year long. So if Venus is forming a harmonious aspect to either Jupiter or another planet, if Venus is factored into an eclipse, if Venus is going to be conjunct an outer planet, that will be affecting whatever is going on with Jupiter in Taurus. So we constantly want to be checking in and seeing what's going on there. It's also the dispositor for Uranus. So now we've got Jupiter, the planet of abundance and growth, in Taurus. Now we've got Uranus, the planet of destabilizing and up and down and revolution, in Taurus. So having these two signs, even though they haven't kissed yet, in the same sign, basically these two planets in the same sign, and the North Node is like, they don't have to conjunct for us to start seeing that this financial system feels like it's about to kind of implode. It feels kind of like a House of Cards moment. And that may be building up really all the way until the conjunction happens next year. But keep in mind, Venus is very much now affecting both Jupiter and Uranus. Jupiter behaves differently in earth signs. That's something else I wanted to touch on, because Jupiter traditionally has an association in its masculine form with Sagittarius. So that kind of ninth house, travel, teaching, philosophy, culture, fearlessness, you know, you want to get out there and explore. The feminine embodiment would be Jupiter in Pisces, or the connection to Pisces, because Jupiter is the traditional ruler of that sign, which is more about no boundaries, metaphysical, spiritual, psychic, otherworldly, kind of dream interpretation, and going in and out of like the ethers. So it does well in mutable signs, right? It does better in fire signs, in my opinion. So having Jupiter come into an earth sign is heavier, right? So the other two earth signs are Virgo and Capricorn. And you'll see that with the decans. When it goes into the second decan, it's going to act kind of like a Jupiter in Virgo. So it's going to be more kind of focused on the details and organization. And then next year, when it goes into the third decan, it's going to behave like a, you know, like a Jupiter kind of going through Capricorn, which is actually not an easy transit, but I think it's going to have more structure. It's going to be more practical. But having Jupiter just going through a fixed earth sign is going to be grounded and practical, and it's very focused on material matters, which is going to affect the way that Jupiter is expressed. You're going to hear a lot more people going, well, it's successful because it's making money, or it's healthy because it's growing, you know, or it's bigger, so therefore it's better. So there is going to be a sense of wanting to grow things or make things expand. So the ways that we're going to see this, I think, kind of be expressed is a number of different ways. Number one, obviously material success, right? Because the earth signs associate material success with wealth and resources. So when Jupiter is in an earth sign, we're going to find that individuals are more focused on an increase not only in material abundance, but physical, tangible results. And they're going to focus on building more material stability for themselves and also for their lives. We're going to see people being much more pragmatic, because I think earth signs are so focused on these tangible results that they're going to be really focusing on practical matters such as finances, work, and building stability. So we're going to see a lot of people start approaching opportunities, really focusing on growth and expansion, but in a more grounded, pragmatic way, weighing the pros and the cons before taking action. And Taurus is slow, okay? Have you guys ever seen a cow cross the road, or, you know, get moved into another place in a field? I mean, you have to kind of get them up and coax them and get them to go. They're not just going to get up and run. So slow and steady wins the race. We might start to see like this slow trickle of growth, and then all of a sudden next year it's like boom, something really shows up after really working hard and, like, you know, doing the work and developing something in all of 2023 before the floodgates open in the spring next year. And then we find that there is just something that's very lucrative that has really kind of come into fruition. I think we're also going to focus more on being conservative, because earth signs are very conservative. They're more risk adverse. Especially Taurus, which can be a little bit more traditional. So when Jupiter is in an earth sign, I feel like individuals act much more cautious when it comes to taking risks, preferring on building steady growth over time rather than taking big, bold actions. And there's resistance to change, and they may prefer to stick with what they know and they trust. But one thing I'm going to tell you guys from an astrological perspective is that some of the financial changes that are going to come in the next 18 months are going to be pretty big, probably one of the bigger ones that we've seen in our lifetime. Huge wealth transfer just with Jupiter coming into contact with the North Node, the square to Pluto. We're definitely going to see this play out over the next couple of weeks. But we may see major downturns in the markets, which might be an opportunity for some people to get in and buy at prices that you would have never been able to buy before. So if you go back and you look at some of the downturns that we had, especially like in 2020 with the pandemic, 2008 with, you know, the housing market and the economic issues that we had. And, you know, there's been people who have commented on the channel telling me to go back and look at the stock market from the stock market crash in the 1920s and compare it to the transits that are coming in May. There is a lot of similarities. I'm debating whether or not I even want to do a video on that. I'm thinking about it. I've been kind of comparing the charts, but I will just say this. When you start to see these things break down, if you happen to be somebody who is willing to take risks or take some of your savings or invest into things, you might be able to get some stocks that are incredibly undervalued because things are going to break down. And that may be an opportunity to really kind of set yourself up for some significant opportunities for wealth and financial growth in the future. I think Jupiter in Taurus is going to be about learning, like doing the work to actively go and learn about finances and how to actually grow wealth and how to develop wealth. Breaking this mentality out of, you know, that we have to go and collect a paycheck and work an 8 or a 9 to 5 and sell our soul to the man just because we want benefits or just because we want security. I think the way that we're looking at making money is going to change. So there's going to be this wave of people wanting to go and learn more about financial freedom. I think there's going to be a lot of sharing of information on social platforms and also people who are going to be coming together and wanting to educate each other about financial freedom. So I'm hoping that you guys do that. You know, yes, we may be more cautious about taking some of these risks with Jupiter square Pluto, but next year when Jupiter and Uranus meet, that might be the big breakout period where all of a sudden that risk really starts to pay off. Sensuality, which I've touched on, because the earth signs are about what feels good. I do feel like we're going to see a focus in not just comfort, but also material things, physical touch, food, pleasure, and what we're drawn to in the natural world. So it may not necessarily be about money and cars and handbags. It might be a really exotic plant, right? It might be a really amazing, you know, condiment or, you know, honey or piece of fruit that comes from a foreign place. It may be also that we're learning a lot more about cuisines and food and also natural treatments from other places around the world. And then finally, practical wisdom. I mean, I like this because it's like making it work for you. I think that the earth signs are very grounded and very wise, and they have a tendency to focus more on the grounded, more common sense approach to life. So when Jupiter's in an earth sign, I think that we focus on building wisdom through experience. And so I think a lot of us are going to be learning this year that we have to physically take chances. We have to kind of try things that we haven't tried before. Rather than getting too much in our comfort zone. I think it's also about relying on our own common sense and intuition as we go through some of these changes with Jupiter and Taurus. I think we may be more cautious about following spiritual or philosophical beliefs that may not seem grounded in reality. So I think a lot of people are going to be opting for you know, spiritual practices or techniques or teachers or gurus that are not all woo-woo. Which I would say anyway, with Saturn being in the sign of Pisces. I mean, on one hand, it's definitely starting the process, I think, of exposing certain individuals in spiritual communities. We've already seen that recently the last couple of weeks with some of the footage that came out with the Dalai Lama, if you guys haven't seen that. But I think we're going to see more about people who are higher up in organized religion. I think we're going to see this throughout some spiritual groups. I think we're going to see this with some spiritual teachers and gurus as well. But with Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Taurus, there's a sense of people being like, make it simple, make it apply. How can I use it in my day-to-day life? I mean, we may see little rituals and routines kind of brought back into our daily life in very practical ways. And I'm wondering if it's going to start with blessing of food, right? Because Jupiter can be about blessing, it can be very wise, it can also be about rituals and ceremonies like weddings. And I think we're going to see more people opt to be having smaller, more nature-related weddings. I think we're going to see more people learning about herbalism. I think we're going to see a lot of people focusing on how to grow a garden and how to like teach themselves which, you know, herbs and plants can be grown next to each other. It's going to be really interesting to see the aspects between Jupiter and Saturn intermittently really on and off all year. So let's talk a little bit about the hot zones. I'm going to take you guys through the transits that I find most prominent. And as always, we'll break this down over the next year as we go through the weekly astro weathers and also the horoscopes and the monthly videos. So that's why I tell you guys to be subscribed. Whenever we get ready to have a big ingress, I go through everything, and then throughout the year, we'll break it down as it's happening in real time and see how it's going to be manifesting out in the world. So let's start first with the 16th. So on the 16th is when we see Jupiter enter into Taurus. And like I said, off the bat, we see that square to Pluto. So, you know, to me, this is really enhancing that Pluto square the nodes. If you guys caught that video that I did a week or two ago, I talked about how we're realizing that the pain of staying the same is just so much more difficult than actually going through the growth. And it's gonna enhance, because Jupiter square anything is enhancing that energy. So Jupiter will magnify, right? More money, more problems, more control over our resources, more problems, wealth inequality, land and financial grabs, abuse of power, financial greed, hoarding of resources. The masses are waking up with Pluto and Aquarius. We are now realizing that, you know, a lot of these financial systems are bankrupt. You know, a lot of decisions are being made about our finances, our resources, what we can and cannot buy, what we should or should not be consuming, because of greed, or because there is an awareness that that system is breaking down. So they're trying to find ways to be able to control our spending, right? So what are we going to see with that? Well, power struggles. Jupiter and Pluto are both associated with power and control. And when they form a challenging aspect like this, there's going to be conflicts that are going to arise. So this could be on a personal or on a global level. Personally, we're going to see both. And it's going to involve issues of politics, authority, and social justice. So you want to look at where Aquarius is in your chart. Okay, whatever is dying off or transforming or what have you, it's majorly impacting some of the energy of whatever's going on with Taurus. So where that Jupiter and that North Node is, those are the reactions, or maybe that's the crisis that's the catalyst for the growth in the Taurus area of your chart. We will see intense transformations because Pluto is associated with transformation, and it's a challenging aspect with Jupiter, and there's intense transformations and upheavals, and it could be sudden. But it will also create sudden changes in our beliefs or our values, and major shifts in our career or our personal relationships. So some of the darker, more challenging things happening right now is almost prompting this sudden opportunity to kind of grow and physically shift or physically change our resources or our values. Definitely confronting the shadow side. I mean, that's a big theme when we see Jupiter, who is very wise, that's challenging Pluto and basically saying, hey, you got to go to the inner depths, right? And really figure out, where is the shadow? Where is the fear coming from? And you have to kind of dig it up. You have to dig out the rot with both of your hands, and really confront the shadow side and the parts of ourselves that we've been avoiding. So for many of us, this can be uncomfortable. And ultimately, you know, I think it can prove to be very liberating if we confront and integrate some of these aspects in our lives. You know, it's hard not to acknowledge that right now. So go and look at where Aquarius is in your chart. There's something shadowy that's kind of emerging, that's being shown just recently. These last few weeks, Pluto moved into Aquarius. It's back at 0 degrees at the time of this ingress, and it's retrograding back actually into Capricorn. I think we're also going to see a heightened sense of ambition, because Jupiter and Taurus wants the growth, it wants the material goods, it wants the gold. I think this particular square is going to be bringing up like obsessive drives and this need to achieve our goals and these new heights. And this can, you know, actually lead to an increase in productivity and success, but it can also create this sense of urgency and pressure and do it now, do it big, do or die. So there can be a sense of just feeling, especially if you got any planets, you know, 27 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, 0 to 3 degrees of the fixed signs. This energy is just like crushing. So I don't know, raise your hand if you have any planets there. I'm definitely feeling it, and it's incredibly uncomfortable. But I think at the end, you know, the Pluto-Jupiter square is really going to show us the potential for growth. And where sometimes when we go through some of the dark night of the soul, or the most uncomfortable things, or the periods of death and grief and loss, after the storm does kind of come that clearing. And so we see the potential for growth. I think it's also going to be showing us that there is some beauty in the breakdown, and the transformation was kind of worth the journey. If we're willing to confront some of these skeletons in the closet and embrace the changes that arise, we may emerge from this aspect stronger and more aligned with our true purpose. So this particular Jupiter square Pluto and Jupiter square the nodes is the most intense really right now from this eclipse all the way until July. Okay, so you've got May, June, July, so about 3 months. Then we're going to start to feel the effects of this square that's going to wear off. So, you know, maybe it's a good time to sit down and really understand where Pluto in Aquarius is and where it's stirring things up and stirring the muck. Maybe it's a good time to come up with a 90-day plan where it's like, for the next 90 days, I'm going to do something every day that's going to scare me. I'm going to do something every day to get outside of my comfort zone. I'm going to change this area of my life, and this is how I'm going to bring it on physically. Because Pluto's in an air sign, okay? Remember, they're in fixed signs. They don't want to change. So in a way, this pressure that is emerging is really going to be something that's going to initiate a bigger change we're going to make in July, when the North and the South node are at, you know, the late degrees of Libra and Aries, and it's squaring Pluto and Capricorn. That will initiate something. So being that right now we're in April, May, June, July, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's something I'm going to do. You know, I'm going to sit down and be like, okay, here's 90 days. This is what I want to achieve in July, and here's everything I'm going to do to prepare up until that period of time. So that might be something that's helpful for you guys as well. Let's talk about the dates, and then I want to get into some of the positive effects that are going to come from this transit. So we know that on the 16th, we see that ingress. We talked about how it's squaring Pluto, how it's really intense. And then the next date that I have for you guys is going to be May the 23rd, 2023. And this will be when Mars is in Leo, and it's forming a square to Jupiter. But if you notice here, we've got Aquarius at 0 degrees. We've got Jupiter and the North Node at 1 and 3. We've got Mars and Leo at 1. We've got the South Node at 3. So this is going to be a grand fixed cross. Okay, so it's going to be like the 23rd, 24th, 25th, really until Mars gets up to about 4 degrees. When we have a cross of any kind, but in particular, you know, the Mars square Jupiter is inflamed egos and wanting to take action, and Mars in opposition to Pluto feels very intense and almost dangerous, and having Mars square the nodes, having Pluto square the nodes, the last 7 days of May is just, it's a lot. I wonder if there's going to be talk of war. I hope not, but it's possible. I could also see this being about individuals feeling like they're getting very dramatic or very reactionary and taking matters into their own hands when it comes to their children, protecting their children, Mars and Leo, and also their resources. So yeah, the 23rd through, you know, the end of May, like the 30th or so, is going to be rather intense with that square. That's one to watch. And then finally on the 30th, we're going to see Jupiter conjunct the North Node in Taurus at 3 degrees. So yeah, it starts on the 3rd, but then it's like as soon as Jupiter sits conjunct the North Node, it's magnifying our future destiny. Now at the time, because the North Node is ruled by Venus, Venus is in Cancer. Venus is in a trine to Neptune, which is dreamy, mystical, magical, spiritual. Venus is also coming into, well, it's still in a slight sextile with Uranus, so there's things radically changing with home and values and family. And Venus is not highly aspected yet. Later in the day, we'll see a moon square Venus, and then it really won't be until Venus starts coming into an opposition with Pluto that we're still going to feel some intensity as well. Maybe some similar themes from when we see Mars in opposition to Pluto, but Jupiter conjunct the North Node at a 3, really stepping into expanding the way that we communicate and talk about resources. But I think this, being a Gemini degree, could be about diversifying our resources. I mean, I do think some people are going to go and buy solid material. I do think that we're going to hear more about gold and silver and copper, or people investing in, you know, natural resources. I've been following, just now that I live in Texas, about how Texas is talking about trying to, you know, produce some or pass legislation for a Texas currency that's going to be digital but backed by gold. These may be some of the things that we start kind of hearing, because new ideas in regards to also currency, I think, might start emerging with this Jupiter transit. Now I'm curious what the Sabian symbol is for 4 degrees of Taurus, because that's going to be meeting at 3, but we always round up. So I would like to read that for you guys. I'll be reading a couple Sabian symbols today, just so you guys know. Okay, so this is page 66, 4 degrees of Taurus. The rainbow's pot of gold. I have not read this yet, so that's hilarious. The key word is faith. The theme is the promise of treasure. The symbol speaks to wealth and prosperity as the lower sign of the higher mastery of values. The wording of this image, a rainbow's pot of gold, is a subtle rearrangement of the familiar pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, places the emphasis on the rainbow or the promise of the spiritual treasure rather than the pot of gold or the material wealth. The image of the rainbow's pot of gold implies that the pot of gold is more than a carrot on a stick or an incentive, and that the individual focuses on keeping the spiritual covenant between himself and God or the universal matrix of life itself, and the rewards are guaranteed. The highest, the symbol represents prosperity and happiness with the natural result of spiritual faithfulness and personal effort. Watch for disappointment or unhappiness with the result of frivolous living and lack of commitment to any worthwhile purpose. The accent is on fulfillment. Something you've worked hard for or been hoping for, you may receive or may realize it's come to you today. The greatest advantage lies in refusing to give up hope. Have faith that you've put your effort and you will work out in your best interest. Guard against deception through get-rich schemes, false promises, or getting something for nothing. It looks too good to be true. It probably is. I love the pot of gold reference. I love that it's not focusing so much on the physical sense of the gold, but what you actually end up getting, right? That's so valuable, but it may not be a physical thing. I mean, kind of cool. I mean, for some people, you know, especially for, I could see Taurus, not Taurus risings, Aries risings, because it's in your 2nd house. It may be money, right? Libra risings, it's in your 2nd house. It may be an inheritance. But we never know exactly which way it's going to come. So it could bring money for each of the 12 rising signs, but it may be in different ways. And we may also realize that being wealthy is now a state of living, not necessarily physical things or numbers in a bank account. Okay, interesting. So we have that conjunction that's taking place. That's going to be in effect from May 30th through June the 4th. I would write that date down, okay? Because that's when you're actually going to see the meat of, oh, here it comes, right? You might hear the cha-ching, you might get the you know, donation, you may be given the gift, but you also might just like realize like, wow, I feel like, you know, wealthy in a sense of all of the riches that my life has to offer me right now. So it really depends on where it is. So it'll really be until the 4th that you'll feel that conjunction, and then Jupiter starts to move away from the North Node. So that's a very powerful time for manifesting and abundance work. Then on the 18th of June, and this will be through the 26th, we are going to start to see Jupiter in Taurus coming into a sextile with Saturn in Pisces, okay? Saturn's retrograde, but we've got Saturn at a 7, Jupiter at a 7, and then that, you know, week-long period or so of the sextile where our vision, our focus, our commitment, you know, our willingness to do the work, to really review. I think those of us who have been doing our Saturn and Pisces work might actually see that we get the benefit, or we get the bonus from having done that work right when Saturn is retrograding, right? We want to treat Saturn retrogrades like when the teacher is out of the classroom. Are we still working on our test? Are we doing our homework? Or are we just kind of like screwing off? And if you're screwing off, then you're not really going to reap the rewards for when Saturn goes direct. But a sextile between Saturn and Jupiter is Saturn basically saying, yes, with consistency and timing and commitment, it will allow stabilized growth in this area. So I think that's really wonderful. Then on the July period, so we'll skip ahead now to July. This will be July 5th through the 11th. I haven't heard anybody else talk about this, so I'm going to bring it up because it seems important. There will be 3 separate dates, and you might want to write these down, that this particular point that I'm going to bring up is going to be reactivated. So it's going to start on July 5th through the 11th. October 30th through the 6th, 2023, and February 21st through the 28th, 2024, okay? On these 3 separate time periods, Jupiter is going to be at 10 degrees. Does that degree sound familiar to anyone? Well, if we go back in time, and look at the April 30th, 2022, it was about a year ago, we had a solar eclipse in Taurus, okay, at 10 degrees. Sun and moon were conjunct, planting a seed. So I remember saying to you guys, when eclipse degrees get reactivated through transits with outer planets, through the nodes, through sextiles, whatever, we see that re-emerge. So recently, you know, obviously as of today, you're seeing the moon go into Taurus, and now the moon's coming to cross this degree. The sun's going to cross this degree later this month, and Jupiter, all 3 time periods that I mentioned, will hit this degree, reactivating the solar eclipse. So now you want to go back and you want to think about what was being seeded, what intentions were you putting together around, the end of April of 2022, because new moon solar eclipses are new intentions, new actions, what we're building, what we're growing. Very beautiful eclipse with an exalted Venus conjunct Jupiter and Neptune. So it was kind of like about our visions and our dreams and what we were creating. And like now we might start to see these things kind of come full circle. So just food for thought. Think about that. And then I'll bring you guys back to the time period that I was talking about. So that was July 5th. Okay, so July 5th, Jupiter hits this degree. Especially sweet if you have any personal planets, like let's say 9, 10, 11-ish degrees of Taurus, sun, moon, rising, you're going to see like that get reactivated, okay? So let's see, because I'm curious what that, I guess, 11 degrees of Taurus is. We'll read that again. Oh, I remember this one. Taurus 11, a woman sprinkling flowers, the green thumb. The symbol speaks to the creativity and outbreathing of itself, that it increases the value and enjoyment of life and desire to pour the self into everything that offers potential for growth. The image of a woman sprinkling flowers dramatizes the concept of nurturance and affectionate care and attention. On a practical level, the image illustrates the care required to bring any creative project to fruition. An individual gets out of life what he is willing to put into it. At its highest, the symbol represents thoughtfulness, conscientiousness, and the natural gift for bringing out the best in others. Watch for superficial involvements, the inability to grasp a deeper meaning of things. The accent is on nurturing. Things may seem to demand your attention. Children and others who rely on you tend to be especially demanding. You may be worrying more than usual about the health and growth of special projects. Your greatest advantage lies in reviewing and looking over those things that you're responsible for, making sure all is in order, giving attention where it is needed. Guard against wasting your time and energy on trivial matters. Try not to worry yourself to death over things that may not come to pass. Caretaking, attention, consideration, generosity, nurturing, responsibility, and concern, okay? So now here comes Jupiter, right? Reactivating that solar eclipse where we had an exalted moon and a sun conjunct in Taurus at a 10. What are we responsible for growing, right? On a personal level, when it comes to our resources, when it comes to our food, when it comes to our awareness. So Jupiter is, if you've been doing that work, you're going to start to see the growth big time. But it'll hit it several times. So this is just the first pass that you're going to get. But perhaps this might be the very beginning of starting to see things unfold. So you'll feel that July 5th through the 11th until Jupiter starts to come out of that conjunction. And it hits about, 11 degrees or so, then it's going to start to kind of fade, but it will come back. Now I'm going to take you guys to September. The next date I have for you is September 4th. And this is an important one because this is when Jupiter will go retrograde. Okay. So like I said, several times when we see these really important Jupiter things happening, I've noticed. And it's happening with the Mercury retrograde today, right? As the moon's coming through Taurus, and then Mercury's going to go retrograde right in between the moon and Uranus. It's like the lunar transits are really interesting with some of these shifts. we've got Jupiter going retrograde in Taurus. So the Jupiter retrograde will begin on the 4th. And Jupiter will go retrograde from September 4th, 2023 at 15 degrees all the way until December 30th, 2023 at 5 degrees. So that means if you have anything between 5 and 15 degrees of Taurus, you will notice that the retrograde is going to reconjunct some of those placements or some of those angles. What does it mean when a planet is retrograde? The energies of Jupiter slow down. It is harder to see externally. We might see slow growth. We might see a need to reevaluate our resources or beliefs about money. We might notice that it's not just an all frivolous spending or bringing in a lot of stuff. We might notice that things kind of slow down a little bit, especially economically, right? We might see that. Does it mean that we don't have as much luck? Not necessarily, but we may have to try harder to kind of really reap the rewards. Maybe if you're a Taurus sun, moon, or rising, or if you're a Sagittarius or a Pisces rising, because you're ruled by Jupiter, you'll feel that retrograde a little bit more strongly. That is possible. Now I want to take you to October 28th, which we haven't even really started talking about. And you guys are probably just getting started with eclipses and you're like, please no more. But the October 28th lunar eclipse in Taurus is one to really watch because there's a lot of Jupiter aspects here. For starters, we've got an exalted moon lunar eclipse in Taurus, which I love. I love these eclipses. They're like chef's kiss. I love that the eclipse is going to be conjunct Jupiter. So that's really positive emotions and expansion of home and family and intuition. But we are also going to see that Mars, the ruling planet of the eclipse, will be in direct opposition to Jupiter. So it's going to magnify the Scorpio Taurus themes of life, death, money, resources, expenses, spending, inheritance, like all that stuff. And we have a very, very strong opposition between, obviously, Mars and the moon. So it's strong in Scorpio, but it is a Taurus lunation. So we want to watch Venus. And something else that we're going to see is that by sign, Venus is going to be in a trine to Jupiter. Not so much the moon, but definitely to Jupiter. Yes, we have a debilitated Venus in Virgo. We will see that with both of the eclipses in the fall. We're going to have the solar eclipse in Libra. Venus will be in Virgo. A lunar eclipse in Taurus. Venus is going to be in Virgo. I don't know, but I definitely will take the conjunction to Jupiter. I think that that's going to be positive. I just know that that's going to be one to watch because Jupiter is going to be strongly highlighted in these eclipses. Unlike previous years where we have seen lunar eclipses in Taurus, usually conjunct Uranus, right? Very destabilizing, or in a square to Saturn in Aquarius, which is just kind of like going through the mud, or it's been in opposition to, planets going through Scorpio. We've seen Scorpio eclipses that have opposed Uranus too. So this is not as destabilizing. We're bringing in more of the sweetness and the abundance from Jupiter and Taurus. You got to take the wins when you can. The Jupiter-Mars opposition, though, does make me feel like there is some intense stuff going on when it comes to banking and resources. Then on the 30th of October, here comes Jupiter. It hits that 10 degrees again, so it's reactivating the Sabian symbol about what are we growing, what are we nurturing, right? And it's so ironic that it's a Sabian symbol that's about having a green thumb. You guys probably think I'm crazy, but I've been telling you since last year, learning to can, preserve, grow food is so important this year. Knowing where your food is coming from, so important this year. There is stuff that's being passed right now. There are decisions being made right now about food, specifically about vaccinations and mRNA stuff that's being put into agriculture, being put into food, specifically pork and also potentially cattle, beef, and other food really rolling out as early as the next couple of months. I've been doing research about this. I'm really passionate about educating myself about this and knowing where my food is coming from. And, it's incentivizing me to go, what farmers markets are in the area? Where can I go where I can find stuff that I know that is actually going to be organic, or I can see the people who are growing the food and talk to them. It's led me to learning more about good ranchers, which I think is really cool that They're a, you know, company that's all about freedom. They're a company that's also about transparency and really being adamant that they do not want some of these treatments being done to their food. And they talk to their consumers about this. So that might be something you guys want to consider. It is a meat subscription box, no affiliation, nothing whatsoever, but definitely something that I'm planning on doing and setting things in motion for me on a personal level within the next 2 years, really being adamant about like learning how to grow a victory garden, learning more about preserving food, canning food, getting to a point where I can hopefully live more sustainably, and whatever I can't do myself, I can at least go and buy from local farmers and from my local community. So I think a lot of people are going to be learning more about that with this particular Sabian symbol that's getting activated. So if you're looking more for the sweetness from the eclipse from 2022, you're going to see that again. And then that's going to take us to the 30th of December. And that's going to be when Jupiter will go direct. So the Jupiter retrograde will be over on the 30th. So as we're going into the new year, Jupiter's direct. That's a great sign as we start the beginning of the new year. And it will only continue to move forward from then. Then the next date that I have for you guys is going to be February 21st through the 28th. And that is going to be when Jupiter is hitting 10 degrees again. So the 21st through the 28th of February 2024, the third time that Jupiter goes over that 10 degrees. And remember, that's the first decan. So it's all about the expansion, the Venus, what's pleasurable, what tastes good, what's natural. And then Jupiter is going to move into the second decan, which is going to be mercurial. So it's going to be communicating, learning, expanding, organizing systems when it comes to food and resources. Then on April 18th, 2024. April 18th, 2024. There we go. We're going to have Jupiter conjunct Uranus at 21 degrees. If you have any personal planets, 20 to 23 degrees, Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, pay attention. Because when these two planets come together, we have the expansion and then we have the shocks and the surprises of Uranus. This is going to be rocking and rolling. The conjunction will be at 21, which is a global degree. It's a Sagittarius degree. It's about information. It's about knowledge. It's about law. But that degree conjunction will roll into into 22 degrees. So if we look at this, it's going to be starting on the 18th. But if you watch, Jupiter hits 22 and then Uranus hits 22, and they're going to be in that conjunction until about the 27th. So the 18th through the 27th, that, 9-10 day period, just rocking the financial systems globally. Laws passing in regards to money and resources. I've thought for some time that's really when we're going to see the explosion of the value of certain cryptocurrencies, and also just finding how food is changing. We're hearing more about stuff that's being passed where now they're going to start putting out lab-grown chicken and potentially other meats on the market. I'm wondering if this is also going to be about, importing that and trading that internationally. I wonder if there's going to be a surge of prices of meat, also to be kind of keeping people from consuming some of these products. I think that that's almost inevitable. But Uranus is volcanoes and earthquakes and things that, actually affect the earth, and it rumbles. So as Jupiter comes into that conjunction, we can see some very big explosions out in the world, literally, not just figuratively. I think most of the explosions are going to be coming from the banking system personally, and it might be this realization that we're actually segueing now to what's going to be a digital currency, I think, in 2024, especially for travel, right? Because Jupiter is travel, so I think the masses are going to be expected to do that. Also increased, cost for flights, and we're going to hear more, I think, about carbon taxes and everything getting tracked. You know, I don't know how often you guys fly, but just recently I've noticed through like buying flights and stuff, looking at flights and getting flights back, and it being like, here's how many carbon, you know, whatever you're using or offsetting. I was like, what? I've even noticed that with like ordering food recently, certain places that you order from, like food will come to you and then it says like, you know, this is like your footprint and this is how much soil and space or whatever you use based off of what you ate. It's just like, it's wild, honestly. But this is going to be where the real big rocks and rattles and rolls are going to be taking place. Being that the conjunction is going to start at 2020, it's going to start at 21, excuse me, and it's going to go to 22. I'm going to read 22 of Taurus. You guys are getting a lot of Sabian symbols today. All right, and as you guys know, 21 is a Sag degree. So growth, bigger, expansion, right? And I think we're also going to hear more about where we're traveling to, how fast we can get there. Okay, Taurus 22, white dove over troubled waters. The keyword is guidance. The theme is a higher call. The symbol speaks to the fact that every individual comes into this world with a spiritual mission and a purpose that guides him, whether or not it's recognized. The image of a white dove over troubled waters symbolizes divine protection, triumph over spirit, over matter, peace of mind, and the ability to transcend emotional turmoil and psychological stress. Implicit in the symbol is the freedom and strength that can be gained from listening to the inner voice and guidance and direction. The suggestion here is that the individual who knows his purpose is set out to fulfill will succeed. On a practical level, the symbol can represent peace or an end to war, enmity of conflict. At its highest, the symbol represents a strong sense of personal destiny and the ability to rise above superficial difficulties and keep focused on the goal until it's achieved. Watch for confusion and lack of direction, absent-mindedness, and daydreaming. The accent is on rising above difficulties and emotional stress. Your greatest advantage lies in minding your own business, working on your own goals, refusing to get involved in the problems of others. Guard against not paying attention or letting your own mind wander. You may miss an important message. Guidance, direction, message, advice, help, protection, mission, transcendence, and peace. And then both of those are going to hit at 22, which means it's going to start picking up with a Sabian symbol of 23. 23 Taurus, a jewelry shop. The keyword is preservation. The theme is all that glitters. The symbol speaks to practical and material values, to a man's desire to own and possess those things that affirm and validate his personal concept of who he is. The image of a jewelry shop full of precious gems and minerals emphasizes luxury, wealth, beauty, and jewelry is used to commemorate special events such as engagements, coronation, graduations, and weddings. Thus, it alludes to achievement, accomplishment, and special status. It also symbolizes aspiration, romance, and reward. At its highest, it represents wealth as a lower sign of higher mastery of values, a unique talent for creating beauty through the imaginative enhancements of the ordinary. Watch for greed, materialism, bad taste, or gaudy over adornment. The accent is on possessions. You may be tempted to overspend, to be exaggerant with your resources. A change in status is indicated. Your greatest advantage lies in focusing on quality. Work for and expect the best that can be achieved. Guard against excess or losing something of value by taking more than what you need or going overboard in some direction. Don't bite off more than what you can chew. Luxury, wealth, beauty, values, reward, elegance, lavishness, splendor. So, I mean, it's interesting that there's been this focus on, like materialism, but not working for the things, working for the experience, redefining what wealth means. Will some people come into a substantial amount of money and be tempted to spend it? Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of human nature. But I think it also might talk a lot about, the prices of some of these things, right? Jewelry, material possessions, things that are already deemed valuable, right? Or are costly. Might continue to kind of increase in their value. And I think we might start looking at things going like, are we buying it just because there's tradition? Are we spending the money like this because we're told we have to? Do we really value this? Or are we buying into the idea that we have to buy the $50,000 engagement ring, or that we have to spend the $200,000 on a wedding, or that we have to have the brand new Mercedes in the driveway? Just kind of, like food for thought. There's going to be a lot of temptation. And I think because we're going to see people who are going to become dramatically rich overnight because of investments that they've made or things that they have, The question is that really going to bring personal fulfillment? Uranus is about that freedom and like evolving and being able to break free. So Uranus and Taurus, it's going to create so much financial disruption that some people are going to decide to leave the system altogether and say, I'm going to make my own way. Or you're going to see people who are going to have all of these fluctuations and then they're going to hit the lottery, they're going to end up making a ton of money, and they may have the money, but they might go crazy, right? Uranus and Taurus. So it's about the crazy things that we'll do for love, the crazy things that we'll do for money, the crazy things that we'll do in order to feel like it's going to bring us some kind of freedom. But remember, guys, like money can't necessarily buy happiness. And I think some of us are going to probably go through the process of having to learn that the hard way, right? So that's pretty much through the spring. The finale is going to be on the 18th of May when we see the sun come into conjunction with Jupiter at 28 degrees. And then just a few days later, Venus will come into conjunction with Jupiter at 29 degrees of Taurus, right? On the 23rd. And then on the 25th of May, 2024, Jupiter will have moved into Gemini. So May 25th is going to be the very last day that we're going to see Jupiter in Taurus. Then Jupiter is going to go into Gemini. It's going to start trining Pluto, amazing for wealth. And we have Venus and also the sun there as well. So I think that's a wealth of ideas, a wealth of, you know, tech, a wealth of communication. It's going to be a very different energy. But I happen to really love the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in a trine to Pluto. I think that while 2024 is wild, right? We're seeing Saturn and Neptune coming into contact. We're going to see Jupiter change signs. That is going to be an interesting transit because it's going to be because of the money that's made. Now the shifts into technology or ideas or traveling or kind of communicating. There's going to be a distinct shift as well, that really power is going to, I think, be in knowledge and information. And it's going to be as a result of some of the physical work we're going to be doing within this next year. Some of us are having to teach ourselves how to do new trades. We're having to teach ourselves how to invest our money or how to be able to build or grow or develop things. But do the work this year is the best advice I can give you guys. The positives of some of these transits, because there are going to be a number of them outside of the potential for maybe bringing in some money and some resources, is economic growth. I do think it's possible. I do think that, you know, off the bat, the Jupiter square Pluto is not going to make it easy. But because Taurus is associated with material resources and financial stability, that Jupiter going through this sign is about economic growth and stability on a global scale with a focus on building and expanding material resources. However, the square to Pluto makes me feel like it's going to be a lot of like, accept this new currency or try this new thing, or, you know, like, we're going to give you the loan if you apply for this. And like, there's going to be some strings attached right off the bat. There may be incentives to switch banks. There may be incentives to, you know, go and start investing some of your resources. So I would say be careful. It's going to take a little bit of time. I think when Jupiter is more in a sextile with Saturn, that's when we're going to see more of that kind of stabilizing. We're going to see increased awareness when it comes to environmental matters, because Taurus isn't an earth sign. So it's going to be very much focused on the natural world and the environment. About renewing, you know, our focus on environmental issues and a desire to protect and conserve Earth's natural resources. In particular, Taurus is going to be about larger animals, like game animals, elephants and whales and tigers and buffalo and anything big, right? That we would call beasts, because the second house is going to be about some of these larger animals. I think we're going to see more land that is being protected and more focus on conservation of forests and other natural resources. So not only are we preserving that for our Earth, but also for all of our animal friends who deserve to be able to have those resources and that protection as well. We're going to definitely see an emphasis on beauty and aesthetics. Get ready. So if you're a makeup hound or a beauty hound like me, you're definitely going to see just lots of booming new products, lots of new advancements when it comes to beauty and wellness. In particular, you know, Taurus is a Venus-ruled sign. Taurus does deal with the neck. It's also going to be about jewelry. It's going to be about cosmetics. I think we're going to see beauty standards continue to get reworked with Uranus there, continue to be redefined. And when Jupiter and Uranus come together in this next year, I think we're going to see that beauty is being looked at very differently. What it means to be beautiful, artificial beauty, how we are changing and transforming our bodies, or how integration also with technology is now affecting the way that we look, or even life in general. So more about you know, creating babies and developing babies and picking their DNA and what they're going to look like and all of that stuff. That's going to be definitely become pretty big money-making opportunity. But you know, Taurus has associations with the arts, fashion, and design. So there's going to be a renewed appreciation for natural beauty and a desire to create more beauty in the world. So I think we're going to see actually kind of like a going back to basics. There may be much more of a focus and an emphasis on organic, natural products, natural beauty. Perhaps, we'll see, I don't know. I think that also just an appreciation for fine art and things that are going to be a little bit more traditional. We might see that make a comeback. And Taurus is a feminine sign, so I do think that we're going to see more focus on appreciating the female body and all of the shapes and the sizes in its natural form, rather than fixating on things that are artificial and fake and enhanced and, you know, manipulated, like with an app or you know, with a like a filter. I think we're going to start realizing that we need to be honest about what bodies look like, natural bodies, right? Natural bodies when we're 65, when we're postpartum, when we're teenagers, and like really reworking the way that we look at the feminine physique. Increased focus on values, morals is definitely going to be a thing, you know, promoting positive values on a global scale, including a focus on social justice, equality, and fairness. That's definitely going to be a theme. And we're still going to see some resistance to change. So just watch for that reluctance to embrace new things, in particular, new financial options, new currencies, new technologies, and new social changes. These may all be things that are going to be coming up because the North Node is still going to be there until about July. So the themes that you want to be watching for with Jupiter is knowledge, global themes, awareness, education, travel, and expansion. And Taurus is going to be earth, beauty, agriculture, farming, design, jewelry, life, right? Pleasure. Once the North Node shifts into Aries and the South Node shifts into Libra, we've gone from 18 months of having a focus on Venus to now we're going to have 18 months of a focus on Mars. And that's going to be much more, you know, masculine, me first, I did it, my focus, myself type of vibes. Really unworking and undoing some of that South Node in Libra, where we're more people-pleasing and considering others, or, you know, being a little back and forth, or wanting to kind of appease people. So enjoy this period while we have it, because I think that we can see lots of opportunity for physical growth. I recommend really working on manifesting abundance of any kind, whether you want better health, if you want better pay, if you want to be bringing in more resources, if you want to be fine-tuning some of your natural talents, any of that stuff. Fertility rituals, abundance rituals, attraction rituals, working on self-esteem and really doing things to promote self-esteem through, you know, ritual are all things that I would recommend. But if you're looking to manifest more abundance, right, I would say crystals you want to work with are malachite, citrine, pyrite, jade, greed, aventurine, and I would recommend getting a magnet or a lodestone. Now, Taurus has connections with the color green of any kind, so it can be bright green, forest green, whatever. I personally like a forest green, or you can do like a soft pink because of its connection with Venus. But Taurus does have connections to earthier tones, right? So those kind of lush greens would be nice. Herbs, because this is a earth element that you can dress candles with, that you can, you know, throw in baths, that you can sprinkle around an altar or around the house, would be cedar, rose, five-finger grass, cinnamon, and basil. All of these herbs are wonderful for bringing in abundance. I personally like to take like those pull-out candles. So I will take like a green candle and carve it with like a Venus symbol. I'll roll it in some abundance oil, sprinkle it with like gold and, you know, green glitter. I will put at the bottom of the candle cedar and red roses and cinnamon, like cinnamon chips. And I'll burn this either on a, usually on a Friday, sometimes on a Wednesday, but I like to do Venus work on Fridays. And you guys can go and look up planetary hours. You can even burn a candle during a Venus hour if you want. Offerings that I would recommend if you're trying to bring in health or abundance. Dollar bills, right? So even if you have like a $2 bill, or if you have a couple bills that you would usually keep in your wallet, I like to put that on my abundance altar with a lodestone or a magnet to attract more of that. I like to put out fruit because I feel like it's a fertile symbol. It's also about bringing in life and like that fruit that we're working for. So maybe you'll, you know, get an apple, or you can get some grapes or something and put it on an altar as an offering for Jupiter because it's in physical form. Little sculptures, you know, artistic pieces, jewelry, physical plants, flowers, or little trees. Honey and perfume or jewelry. These are things that would be really wonderful to put out for Jupiter and Taurus. In particular, like those little money trees that you can get, or those little lucky bamboo trees would also be really wonderful to include in an altar for abundance. But like I said, you want to think about fertility, abundance, attraction, and self-esteem work. These are going to be the things that you want to work on. And we'll touch on some of these transits throughout this next year. I just wanted to give you guys kind of an idea of how this was going to play out. All right, so with that being said, I will take you through the 12 signs now, and I'm going to give you guys just my brief 2 cents on what is expanding with Jupiter going into Taurus. Keep in mind that when I do this, it's for the whole sign, 12 rising sign predictions. I always see somebody that's like, do I read my rising sign or my sun sign? Rising sign is going to tell you exactly where in your chart it's happening. You can listen to your sun sign. That will definitely give you some food for thought in how it's affecting you personally or your career. And your moon sign you can listen to in terms of how it's going to affect you emotionally or within your home or your family. If you like to listen to your progress chart, you can listen to that rising sign. If you want to listen for Placidus, I'm a Placidus user myself, but keep in mind that it's going to go from 0 to 15 degrees this year. So you could use your whole sign if you wanted to, right? If you're a Placidus user though, you want to find where 0 degrees of Taurus is and look at 0 through 15 degrees. Whichever house or house cusp that is, that's where you're going to be seeing Jupiter's transit. But it will bring abundance, physical growth, and manifestations for all 12 signs. So even though some of the global predictions are a little it's going to bring abundance for everybody, okay? And you're going to have lots of support from sextiles to Saturn. You're going to have lots of support also because we've got this beautiful eclipse coming in October that I think is also going to start to show us what we've been working hard for, and that all of that good luck is kind of coming back our way. In terms of who this is going to affect the most, obviously this will be strongest for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising, in particular 0 through 15 degrees. If you have any other personal planets within these degrees, in Taurus, Jupiter is going to hit that and magnify that, so it's definitely worth getting a reading for. Equally, if you're a Sag or a Pisces rising, because Jupiter is your chart ruler, you will feel these effects. You also really want to pay attention to if it's forming sextiles and conjunctions or what have you. When it goes retrograde, that's a time that you also want to pay attention. Earth signs like Capricorn and also Virgo, you're going to be experiencing trines because Taurus is a sister sign. And if you're a water sign, right, like Cancer or Pisces, you will be experiencing a sextile from Jupiter and Taurus. Scorpio, you'll be experiencing an opposition, so it's going to be very much about your relationships, okay? So listen to your whole sign, listen to your Placidus, listen to your progress, whatever you want, choose your own adventure. I'm going to change this chart really quickly. All right, so let's take this to Aries and Aries rising first. All right, I'm excited. Are you guys excited? I'm excited because I feel like everybody needs some good news given the cosmos right now. As always, a couple of people said they like this deck. It's the Lucid Dreams Beginners deck. All right, so this is going to be for Aries and Aries rising. What's up, Aries? You no longer get the Jupiter transit. You are passing the torch to Taurus. But that's okay because you have Jupiter going into your second house, and the North Node is in your second house as well. Obviously, as you know, by this point, I talked a little bit about how Jupiter is going through Taurus and it's growing and magnifying whichever house it's in. So Jupiter has connections to your 9th house, which is about travel, belief system, education, philosophy. And it also has connections to your 12th house, which is about spirituality and your vision for the future, your beliefs. So these are two very spiritual houses that are kind of ringing through Jupiter's transit in your natal second house. Now, the house is where you're going to see in your life there's going to be growth. So maybe you're investing more money in travel or in learning more about spirituality or the esoteric. Maybe you're traveling to foreign lands. Maybe you're going to retreat centers. Maybe you're investing more on education. Maybe you're investing more on your spiritual, talent, right? Can Jupiter in the second house bring you more money? Yes. Will Jupiter in the second house probably bring you more money? Yes, but it might be because you're doing business with foreigners. It might be because you're going and teaching yourself and learning techniques from other countries, other people when it comes to farming, agriculture, when it comes to flowers, when it comes to jewelry. Like there's a number of different things you could do here. Second house, North Node, Jupiter can be increased spending habits as well. So you're also, for everybody listening, obviously there's a Mercury retrograde happening here. So there's a lot of reorganizing our Taurus area before we have this ingress. So there can be a sense of kind of going back and forth going, how are my finances? What am I spending? What can I afford? And then money comes in. So it's expanding your resources, expanding your self-esteem. But I think also it's about what you're investing your beliefs into, and can it be a time where you are bringing in more spiritual gifts or more physical possessions? Yes, but it may mean that it's something you buy on vacation or it's something you buy in another place or an experience that you have and then you bring that back with you and it's something that you hold on to, right? So that's a great transit. That is a money transit, Aries. That is a money transit. So that is the financial house that it is moving through. The card that I got for you is the King of Swords. All right, I love this card. This can be you, or this can be you connecting with somebody who represents this archetypally. It can be an air sign, so a Gemini, or it can be a Libra or an Aquarius. King of Swords, mental clarity, intellectual power, truth, authority, reason, discipline, high standards, head over heart, integrity, serious and strict. But I wonder, are you making money through publishing? Are you making money through speaking? Are you making money through teaching a course, right? Because Jupiter is about knowledge. It's got connections to your 9th house. Maybe those resources are coming in through teaching. Maybe you have something really prominent that you want to say. That may be one of the ways that you're bringing in more money, but it might also be that you're working with somebody or somebody's helping you really shine a light on your resources, or maybe you're getting really strict about your philosophy or your belief about money. Just because money's coming in doesn't necessarily mean you're spending it. So I'm curious to see how this plays out for you. Definitely your goals revolving around finances are changing. I can see that with the square to Pluto, and I think that you're coming into a healthier relationship with some of your finances, okay? Good luck, my Aries, good luck. Taurus and Taurus rising, you have Jupiter going through the sign of Taurus in your natal chart. So that's you. All eyes are on you, Taurus. This is a very big year for you. This will probably be a year from now through next spring that you'll look back on and you'll realize how much you've grown, okay? So Jupiter in the first house, coming into contact with the North Node. Jupiter has connections with the 8th house of change, transformation, and joint resources. It also has connections with your 11th house, which deals with others and your goals. But the growth, the expansion is actually happening in your first house. So it's an expansion of the self. And this can be figuratively. So there can be more knowledge, more learning, becoming more philosophical. There can be a sense of changing your belief system and wanting to share it with the world. This can give you travel fever, but this can also give you like snack attack where you're craving the sweets and anything and everything. Definitely the Jupiter transit, the ascendant, can be a year where you can pack on the pounds, you can gain weight because Jupiter wants to get bigger. So being that Jupiter is about growth and it's about a transformation of the body, if you're staying healthy and managing your diet and what you're eating, it might just mean that you're traveling more, you're growing more as a person. It may also mean that you're becoming more popular in some of your social groups, and there's more just visibility on you. And I think that the changes are going to be seen through you and your appearance physically. Can it be a time where there's more, beauty in your life, where you're focusing more on your appearance? Absolutely. I think Jupiter in the North Node in your sign is going to be having you focus on, how do I feel in my skin? Do I like what I'm wearing? How am I kind of, presenting myself to the world? What don't I like and what do I want to change? Okay, so your goals in regards to your physical health and your body is definitely going to shift, but I think it's about kind of coming into your true nature. I'm curious how that's working out with the squares to Pluto, because I feel like there's so much changing and transforming in your career right now. And some of this personal growth that wants to happen or change and transform may right now feel like it's a little bit at odds with your career. And there can be a sense of fighting it, and that, on one hand, your career is very demanding. On the other hand, you're just like, I need to break free. I need to travel. I need to be on my own. And you're going to learn that it can't be all work and no play. You have to give that to yourself sometimes. Jupiter also has connections also with, fertility. So for you being a Taurus, Sun, Moon, Rising, if you're wanting to get pregnant, this can be a pregnancy transit, especially if you've got any aspects happening to your 5th house. So I would watch like the Mercury retrograde there over the summer. I would watch when we go through Virgo season over the summer, because there can be a sense of your body changing and growing as a result of a potential pregnancy, especially having Jupiter in a sign that's associated with fertility and life. So let's see what the cards say for you, Taurus. The card that I get is the Queen of Pentacles. Such a great card for you, Taurus. I'm so excited for you. Nurturing, practical, generous, welcoming, sensible, luxurious, caring, homebody, good business sense, and a working parent. So perhaps like the feeling pulled back and forth between, well, what do I need and what's best for me versus, like what is being required of me on a professional level and my career. And then that opposition to the South Node transit in your 7th of like what your partners need, right? There is a sense with the North Node and Jupiter being in your 1st house, especially if you are partnered, that partners can be saying like, you're being selfish. Like you're not always putting me first, and like rightfully so with Jupiter and the North Node in your 1st house. It's being like, well, what about me and my body and my needs, And so it may not always resonate with other people. It may not always resonate with work. Just be mindful that that energy can become very obvious, and there can be this darker side of the Jupiter transit of being very self-righteous. But I think with the Queen of Coins coming up, especially if you happen to be a Taurus female, Sun, Moon, or Rising, it's basically saying like, no, I'm getting really grounded and really practical and focusing on getting in touch with my body. Queens can be mothers, so it can be foreshadowing motherhood, but it can be about just nurturing and taking care of yourself and being seen as somebody who's very wise, especially in a financial or in a business sense. Okay, good luck. For Gemini and Gemini rising, we've got Jupiter going into the sign of Taurus, moving into your natal 12th house. So this is going to be expanding your private life. This is expanding your spirituality. This is expanding your intuition, expanding behind the scenes. This next year, as Jupiter is in your 12th house, may feel like a year of kind of being in a cocoon, right? Before Jupiter comes into your sign next year, and there's this big breakout period where everything is new. So you're completing what has been a 12-year cycle, and you're getting ready to come into the new next year. Jupiter has associations with your 7th house of relationships and marriage or partnerships, and your 10th house when it comes to your career and your responsibility. So the positive is like, look, if you want to go back to school, if you want to get a degree, if you want to complete a program, if you want to go get lost in a foreign country for a little bit, the Jupiter in the 12th house transit is wonderful. The challenge here is that there can be things that are going on with relationships behind closed doors that are difficult. You may feel like some relationships are ending or that partners are further away. You may have partners that are traveling and they're abroad and you're not always together. It can be a time where there's a lot of meeting with clients and people behind closed doors and talking to them behind the scenes about work because Jupiter has connections with your 10th house. So there can be in the 10th house, excuse me, the 12th house, a sense of things finishing up or wrapping up, coming to a conclusion. So some relationships may end, some jobs may end. But if that does happen, it's like giving you the opportunity to go, okay, what's next? What am I reflecting on? Really great for connecting with your intuition, your sense of self. I really encourage you guys to spend time out in nature with Jupiter in the 12th house. If you can travel to places and, you know, be closer to the natural elements, the desert, the forest, the beach, yes. If you have been wanting to go on a trip to a foreign place, especially to go and visit a temple or a church or a retreat center and just reconnect in nature and learn more about health and wellness, it's a wonderful time to do that. The challenge is that you do have the square to Pluto that's in your 9th house. So there is this sense of the more that you're exploring the spiritual or the esoteric world or the dream space or anything that has to do with your beliefs, the more that it's actually changing or challenging pre-existing belief systems. I have a number of clients who have been going through, you know, Saturn in the 9th square Uranus in the 12th. Ironically, a lot of these clients come from faith-based backgrounds where they have a very strong religious practice that they've had their entire life. In the last 2 years of Saturn in the 9th square Uranus in the 12th has been, maybe I don't believe in that, maybe it's not serving me and the world is changing. And so what might emerge is this awareness that's like, you may take some of that with you, but you may abandon ship and go deeper into meditation and reflection and that connection that you have with the cosmos. So I think that Jupiter in the 12th is really encouraging you, you know, find a mentor, you know, find a therapist, find a shaman, find a guide, somebody who can help you navigate some of this stuff. Traveling with partners can be wonderful if that is one way that that energy plays out. You may also find that there is this need to really reflect on your career. There might be more kind of working on things behind the scenes or needing to take time from being so heavily career focused, okay? So you're expanding your spirituality and your beliefs. Let's see what the cards have to say here. The card that I get is the World card. Awesome card. So appropriate for the 12th house, right? That completion. And you are completing something. There is something you will complete within relationships or your professional life or just even something that you need to wrap up and you need to clear out. Completion, integration, accomplishment, world travel, bigger picture, evolution, fulfillment, harmony, and sense of belonging. And so this is the final card of the major arcana. This is basically like the, you know, pass go, collect $200. You've learned your lesson, on to the next thing. So if you need to let something go, especially in a peaceful manner, right? Job-wise, relationship-wise, what have you, you may actually do that in a much more peaceful way and kind of acknowledge, okay, something's coming to an end, but something new is going to be emerging. Good luck. I especially love that card for travel. I think that that can be really, really great for you this year. So we have now got Jupiter moving into Taurus, and this is for the Cancer rising horoscope. You are going to be experiencing Jupiter moving through your natal 11th house, which is expanding your networks, expanding your goals, expanding your friendships, right? Making all of that so much more delicious, right? Jupiter in the 11th house good friends, good food, good wine, togetherness, and an expansion of the people that you love spending time around. So Jupiter has connections traditionally to your 9th house of education, culture, and travel. And it also has connections to your 6th house of daily routine, health, and work. So when we see, you know, the scheduling planet and the travel or belief system planet move into the 11th house, I wonder, are you traveling to go and meet friends in other places? Are they coming to see you? Are you rearranging your work schedule or your life schedule to make it possible to say, you know what, I got to make more time for my social life. I got to get out there and join a club, meet people, make friends, have a vacation, right? These might be things that are coming up. Health classes with others, fitness classes with others. I also think, like, you know, having time to be able to go and study spiritual or metaphysical things. Developing new skills. I think some of you guys would really love cooking classes, really love acting classes. You'd really love anything where you can, you know, learn these 6th house type of skills with groups of other people, right? More fun is going to be had with numbers of people. This is not a year that you want to spend time alone. You want to say yes to the parties. You want to go places. You want to meet others because you're going to have a good time, and you're also going to meet people from other places or have like a lot of diversity within your friend group, which I think is really important for you. One thing I love about this is that it's also naturally sextiling your sign. So as Jupiter is sitting in your 11th house, expanding your social group, it's sextiling your ascendant, giving you more hope, optimism, you know, positivity, making you feel more nurtured. I think you're really going to love this energy. The truth is the challenge is that it's coming into squares with Pluto. And everybody's going to have this. It, for you, seems to represent there's been some real changes or transformations with your with crisis throughout the last like year or two. You've had Saturn in this house, so some of you guys have gone through death, financial issues, losses. There's been some real trauma that's happened. Maybe there's been some problems in relationships, some friendship fallout, right? And if it wasn't you going through this, it was other people, and there's been some rockiness with some of your connections. I do feel like there's an opportunity to overcome that. I feel like Jupiter moving into the 11th house at the very least is going to say, look, there's more people coming in, there's new people coming in. Maybe you're connecting with people while you travel, maybe you connect with people that are new. But there's definitely new people coming in, and if there's friendships that you want to salvage, it's a matter of really just kind of showing up, right? That's really the key here. It's just showing up and staying connected with them. And I think that you're really going to enjoy the Saturn in the 9th sextile this, and then Jupiter sextile the ascendant. It makes me wonder if, like, you know, it's worth staying connected to certain friendships, even if you don't see them all the time, making the time to kind of go back and forth or meet them in other locations. But chefs, artists, creatives, people who are also into tech and technology and art and all that stuff, with Uranus being in your 11th house, just be mindful. You're going to be rubbing elbows with a completely different crowd in the next year. And you're going to have some friends in some high places, and likely they're also going to have some delicious treats. So let's see what the cards say for you. The card that I get is the Justice card. So kind of building off of that give and take in friendships and relationships. I'm not surprised that this card is coming up for you. Justice, fairness, universal law, karmic, cause and effect, truth revealed, legal truth, accountability, and consequences. So yes, some friendships there's possibly no coming back from, but from others, I think they'll be willing to overlook some of the challenges that have happened. And cause and effect, meaning that, you know, some friendships end, but maybe it makes space for some new ones. Maybe that there's some trauma that comes up, but it really shows you who your real friends are and who really kind of show you that they've got your back and they're there to kind of support you throughout this process. So there is like a sense of finding the balance within some of your relationships throughout this transit. Good luck. I've got Leo and Leo rising, and you're going to be experiencing Jupiter going through Taurus throughout your natal 10th house of career. My goodness, Leo, especially all of the fixed signs, okay, just in general, the ones that are really feeling it, like I said, 27, 28, 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, 0 to about 4 degrees of the fixed signs, sun, moon, rising, personal planets. Leo rising, especially the early degrees. Well, what can I say? Now is the time. I've been telling you for months, don't worry, your moment is coming. Jupiter is coming into your 10th house. This is very big for your career. Between the North Node being there, which only moves through there every 19 years, Jupiter being there, which only moves there every 12 years, you got a sweet little transit where it's just like the sky's the limit when it comes to your career. Jupiter has connections with other people's money and resources. It also has connections with the 5th house. So being that Jupiter is moving through the 10th, yes, career expansion, but you may increase your prices, business might be good, you might have other people that are bringing you resources. It can mean that there is more responsibility for covering expenses relating to insurance, relating to benefits, maybe paying for partners' benefits, that might be a thing. You might be feeling the responsibility of being a boss, being a business owner, you know, running something, launching something. But these are good problems to have, okay? So Jupiter going through the 10th house is a wonderful time to have launches and to really put yourself out there and be in the public eye. You will have this transit for the next year. So it's kind of go big or go home. And then eventually when Jupiter and Uranus meet in the 10th house, it can be about a sudden surge in your public image or reputation. You've got Pluto in your 7th and Jupiter in the North Node in your 10th. So you're a front and center, like you're being seen at work, you're being seen out in the public eye, maybe you're developing a reputation for yourself. Yeah, you know, the Jupiter square Pluto is like you're growing when it comes to your career and your persona, and it's squaring Pluto in the 7th. So some relationships are not going to do well with this growth. They're not going to do well with you being super hyper committed to your career. Pluto in the 7th is showing you where certain relationships need to change and transform or kind of die off, so that way you can have the control and the growth that you need. Be mindful of relationships, friendships, clients, or just other people that might threaten your growth, that may stunt your ability to really make decisions for yourself. Don't let other people push you around or tell you what to do. Be very mindful of your reputation because all eyes are on you right now. Some of you guys may become parents because Jupiter rules your 5th house of children and your 8th house of transformation. So there can be a new identity that's emerging out in the world that's like, now I'm a parent, or now I'm divorced, or, you know, now I'm becoming a CEO. So there's some really big things happening. The next couple months, the truth is the pressure is on, especially if you have planets in the early degrees of Leo, because you're going to have that grand fixed cross. The positive is that the fixed cross moves your life forward. So through the transformation of relationships and the growth in your career, you're going in the direction you need to go in. But some of you guys are realizing that you need changes in your relationships, or you need a different cast of, you know, characters to come in and kind of help support you to manage some of the changes that are going on. Go big or go home. That's the best advice I can give you. You know, go full steam ahead. You'll see in the next year just how much growth there's going to be happening in your career, and how much abundance it can really bring you. Okay, especially if Jupiter in Taurus, you want to give information about money, investing, resources, banking, beauty. I mean, all of these things can definitely be major lucrative money-making opportunities. Let's take a look at what the cards say for you. The card that I get is the Two of Cups, which is interesting because Pluto is there, you know, so relationships are definitely a focal point. Unified love, partnership, mutual attraction, romantic love, connection, mutual respect, joining forces, close bonds, togetherness, relationships and partnerships. It can be that you take on a partner, you know, in a law firm, especially if you're a lawyer with this transit. It can mean that you're bringing a partner into the work that you're doing. It means that you might meet some very powerful, you know, partners or clients or other people who come in. Other people can really help you rise to fame right now, or kind of hit some of these marks for some of your professional goals. So there's strength in numbers and support that's coming from other people. So that's really helpful in spite of that Pluto square. Good luck. So we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. Jupiter's moving into the sign of Taurus in this next month, and it'll be transiting your natal 9th house for the better part of the next year. This is wonderful for you because it is a sister sign. So if you're a Virgo ascendant, Jupiter going through your 9th house, trining your ascendant, is opening things up, making you more optimistic, positive, open to travel, really kind of shifting your perspective. Jupiter loves being in the 9th or in the 12th house, okay? So for Geminis and Virgos, this is much more of like a spiritual energy. This is much more of like a travel energy. This is what you're learning and like shifting your perspective. Jupiter being in the 9th house, it's gonna be able to function better. So it's gonna bring you like long, comfortable, more pleasurable trips, or learning more about art and beauty, or possibly getting married, having relationships at a distance, bringing on new mentors, teachers, or gurus, going back to school, completing a degree, becoming a teacher, publishing something. Really wonderful energy in the 9th house, and Jupiter has connections to your 7th house of relationships and your 4th house of home and family. So when we take the home and family and the relationship aspect, some of you guys might be moving to the next phase of a relationship, getting married, getting engaged. Jupiter through the 9th house can be an indication of traveling, going to friends' weddings, going to friends' parties, engagements, or maybe even your own. It can also be an indication that you're really focusing on working with lawyers, publishing agents, counselors, and therapists who might be working with you, a partner or family, especially if you're having to handle like wills or estates or anything in regards to property. There can definitely be support that can come in from like legal people this year that can help you. Some of you guys may move further away, right? Because Jupiter is connected to your 4th house. You may move back home if you have family that lives further away. You may consider moving abroad, applying to a program or a school that might be in a distant city, or just focusing more on traveling with a partner, especially those of you guys who are single. I really recommend, with Saturn being in your 7th house and Jupiter being in the 9th, traveling, okay? Traveling is going to make it more likely that you're going to meet someone. You might meet them at an airport while you're on a trip. You might have a crush on a teacher or a professor. And if you're open to dating online, really open up those search optimizations and be willing to go a little bit further outside of where you're immediately living, because it's likely you might meet somebody who's going to be a little bit further away, okay? But for the most part, yeah, expanding travel, education, and belief. I'm really liking April into May. I'm really liking August into September, December into January, because that's when we're going to have planets that will be activating a Earth trine. And I really just hope that you guys are able to turn over a new leaf. And I think some of the squares to Pluto is like, are you making time for travel? Are you making time to shift your beliefs and your philosophy? Are you going back to school? Are you making more time for love? These things are all important, right? You need a little bit more of this stuff in your life in order to feel like you're really kind of stepping into your purpose. Let's see what the cards say for you, Virgo. The card that I get is the 9 of Wands. Perseverance, resilience, testing of faith, the final push, boundaries, last stand, close to success, and fatigue. You know, I could be wrong, but I feel like I said this to you in a recent video. I was like, you're really close, you're almost there, you're exhausted. You know, I think Jupiter going into the 9th house is like, I did it. You know, I finally completed the program, or I finally got myself out of the hole, and like now I'm booking a trip, or like now my philosophy has changed. That 9 of Wands comes up right when you're in the final moment and you're pushing through something. So it might be something that leads you to a new philosophy or a new belief system. It may also be a turning point where I think you realize that some of the challenges maybe that you've gone through recently in your personal beliefs, or challenges with your health, or challenges with your schedule, or your relationships, you're finally having a breakthrough. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. And with a sextile to Saturn, relationships can stabilize. With a trine to the ascendant, it's all about optimism and positivity and being more focused on that growth when it comes to your belief system, so you can maintain that optimism and start to see that new stuff come in. Good luck, Virgo. We've got Libra and Libra rising. Jupiter will be moving through your natal 8th house. So the name of the game here for you, Libra, is going to be expanding intimacy, joint resources, and embracing change or embracing endings, okay? This can be a little bit more of a difficult, challenging transit because Jupiter is going into the 8th house, which is kind of like the shadow side. And it naturally creates an inconjunct or a quincunx to your ascendant. So it does seem to kind of suggest there is a sense of changes going on, but you might be a little uncomfortable with some of these changes. Now, Jupiter has connections to the 3rd house of the mind, communication, transportation, daily routine, siblings, and the 6th house, which deals with health and daily routine habits, pets, anything in regards to work or coworkers. So we've got 2 houses that generally have very mutable energy moving into to a fixed 8th house. So as Jupiter goes into any house, it magnifies, right? The North Node being in the 8th house is magnifying change, transformation, things that might bring up trauma, things that might bring up endings or death or letting go, and processing things that can be kind of scary. So Jupiter going into this house may magnify that. But I think what it's shining a light on is how you communicate, deal with, and think about change, right? How you communicate, okay, this thing is ended, you know, do I harp on it or do I move on? Whether or not you allow that to impact your mental health, your emotional health, your sexual health, your financial health. The truth is that for both Libra and Aries rising, you know, Jupiter going through the financial houses is an indication that money and resources may be coming in. Where this comes from is going to be the question. So the 8th house eclipses the North Node, the Jupiter moving through there. A lot of Libras and Libra risings have either experienced a death, an inheritance of some kind, an insurance payout. They've experienced, you know, spousal support, child support, the death of a parent, the death of a spouse, something that they end up inheriting that belongs to someone else, right? So now Jupiter's moving into a physical sign. So some of you guys may actually find out, oh, my grandmother passed. I found out that I inherited a car, right? Or I found out that I inherited, an animal that I have to take care of. That could be one way that it pans out. Joint resources like the money from others. So where you've invested your money, it can also be about insurance payouts. It can also be about your spouses or your partners. So just Jupiter going into the 8th house might indicate a partner has a windfall, they make a ton of money, and there in turn, it also kind of affects your finances. But Jupiter in the 8th house can magnify tax issues, debt issues, money owed. So you want to watch for that as well, especially like credit cards, loans, and mortgages. Be very careful with that, especially if it involves spending for moves, like movement because of the connection to your 3rd house, or anything in regards to vehicles. That's another way this can play out. But for the most part, there's still another eclipse coming here in the fall. Jupiter's moving through there. I think it's going to be the way that you look at what you gain through endings. And it might be that a job ends, but it makes way for a more profitable job. It might be that, money comes in, but you have some mixed feelings about how you got that money, whether it's from an insurance claim or through an inheritance. And then the squares to Pluto in the 5th house is going to be about, I think, changes that are going on in the heart space, changes that are going on with your love life, changes that are going on with how you have fun or chances, or maybe taking chances with resources or investments, and they may really pay out with Jupiter being in your 8th house, and the effect that children have on you psychologically or financially. The card that I got for you is the 9 of Cups, one of the better cards of the deck. It's about wish fulfillment, contentment, satisfaction, emotional richness, abundance, success, recognition, and pleasure. So this is kind of like my catch-all card. It's like, look, what are you wishing for? You're going to get it. And many of you guys will find at some point within the next 12 months, especially as Jupiter gets closer and closer to Uranus, an investment, a wish, something that you started may end up being very lucrative, and you might get exactly what you're looking for. Good luck, Libra. That's an exciting reading for you for sure. Now we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's going on, Scorpio? This is going to be an interesting one. Pay attention. I know you've had a lot of stuff going on with Pluto in your 4th house. Now we've got more planets moving into your 7th house. You're like, it's never ending. It's always about something that's going on with my relationship or my partner or my love life, or yes. And it's just, the truth is, it's just going to keep going. It's going to be like that at least until the North Node gets out of the 7th house. Jupiter is obviously a positive planet, so it is about richness and abundance and resources and growth, okay? For Scorpios that are single, Jupiter going into the 7th house and the North Node being in the 7th house may be a really dramatic turning point where somebody could just walk right into your life and it's like on, right? And it works. Because Jupiter can represent somebody who brings you something valuable. So it can be the gift of a relationship. It could be a very lucrative client. It could be a business partner that ends up being like very savvy, wealthier clients, better paying customers, the list goes on. Jupiter has connections to your 2nd house. So it's about your money, your possessions. It also has connections to your 5th house, which is about what you love and what you value, what you're willing to take chances on. So when it comes to working with other people, right, whether this is a romantic partner, a spouse, or a client, there is a sense of you going, okay, like I'm willing to invest in this other person or in their ideas or in their talent. There may be a sense of also growing your resources, taking chances, developing new businesses, or just really putting a lot of like your faith into other people. It can bring in, you know, wealthy people. So you might meet people that are going to be financially well off. You may meet foreigners because Jupiter can be foreigners. You might meet artists and bankers and designers and other people because Jupiter is in a sign that's associated with Taurus. So those of you guys who are single, with Saturn being in your 5th house of true love, sextiling Jupiter in the 7th house, it's like, look, you could meet somebody and you could realize like this is it. And it could just be the very beginning of like realizing like, wow, there is a really prominent relationship on the horizon, which could ultimately end up being a long-term partner, business partner, client. Especially with the sextiles to Saturn in the 5th, which isn't just about true love, but for a lot of Scorpio risings, you know, there are going to be huge themes in relationships that are involving children or pregnancy. Saturn might be the responsibility of children and whether or not you're really in love with that person, and if you want to do those things and whether or not you're ready for it. But the sextile to Jupiter in the 7th might be partners who are more positive and optimistic about potentially having a kid, which might help you with the process of making this decision. And commitment or marriage or ceremonies with Jupiter in the 7th may also factor into the sextile with the 5th, where they would say, well, what if we got married? Would that make you feel better? You know, maybe you might be traveling more with partners and you start talking about what you love and what you value and creative projects, or possibly start talking about starting a family. I would also say that the challenge is that you've got the North Node and Jupiter in your opposite sign. So it's not really, lovingly I'm saying this, it's not really about you, Scorpio. Scorpio risings in particular, it's not about you right now, it's about other people. And with Jupiter in the North Node in the 7th house, you're having to learn to, you know, give more, be more generous with partners or with clients. You're having to learn to trust other people more and really invest in their guidance. So for those of you guys who need an astrologer, you need a therapist, you need somebody to help you with marketing, you need a business manager, I would be making those investments and really be talking about how you can grow things with their guidance, right? But it's coming into squares off the bat with Pluto and Aquarius, which is already squaring the nodes. So a lot of you guys are feeling a lot of tension, a lot of pressure on the home front. Things are changing with the home and family. There may be some dramatic crisis that's happened recently within your home or even with your parents. And it's created some tension with your 7th house. So there can be family drama or home drama that's putting pressure on a marriage, problems with parents that are creating conflicts with a partnership, and there's some stress there. It's going to be like that for the next couple of months until about July, when the nodes change. So the fact that Pluto is the focal point of the square is literally you needing to change. You needing to change your roots, your history, your home, your emotions. You have to be the one to do it. Because if you don't, because Jupiter is in the opening square, you're going to push people away. You're going to have partners that are going to say, I need some space. I need to go somewhere else. I can't be around. You're going to have clients that are going to say, I'm going elsewhere to other people because obviously you've got too much going on. You're going to have counselors and therapists that are going to say you have to work through some of your emotional issues. So it can be difficult for some Scorpio risings. And I would just say be present with that. Be willing to make the inner emotional changes that need to happen so you can really gain a lot of the growth and the positivity that can come from some of your relationships. Down the road next year, when Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction, there's going to be some sudden radical changes of relationships, and it could go one of two ways. When Jupiter and Uranus align next year in your 7th, it's this merger of your 5th house and also your 4th house, and it might be that a partner finds out they're pregnant. A partner might also finally kind of get to their wits' end and go, that's it, I've had enough, I'm done, I want a divorce. Or they may start kind of just traveling and needing some of their space. I know partners have already been acting kind of wild, but just keep in the back of your mind, if there's been a problem already in a relationship or with a roommate or with a business partner or with a relative, you need to know that that problem is not going to go away. It's just going to keep reverberating until you get to next year, and then it's going to kind of implode. So take a look at your behavior, take a look at your emotions, try to work with these inner emotions and things that are going on so you can avert from some of those things from happening and learn to trust in the support of other people, right? That's really important right now. So therapists, guidance counselors, astrologers, people who can help guide you is really important. The card that I get is the Page of Swords. So this is the energy of younger people too. So like Libras, Aquariuses, Geminis. This is witty, communicative, and curious, mental agility, alert, thirst for knowledge, chatty, restlessness, inspired, but it's a messenger. Okay, so pages come in and they say, we need to start talking about this. We need to start learning more about this. We need to kind of start the process of getting things moving and shaking. And so the fact that Pluto is in an air sign is, I think it's about this awareness that's like, hey, things are going to start changing. So if things are going to start changing, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we can make positive change happen. Younger people may come in, so kids might be involved in this, or it can even be that it's the beginning process of you starting to write or journal or communicate or share some of your fears or some of the things that's making you feel held back. But by addressing some of this stuff, you can actually go deeper into some of the positive changes that are going to happen next year. Some of you guys may suddenly decide to get married or, you know, move across the country or launch a new business, or suddenly your creative, you know, endeavors took off, and it's all because you took a chance. Really big things are going to happen, and you're going to need other people to help you through that process. So I think the beginning process is learning how to communicate effectively with somebody else before you take some of those leaps of faith. Good luck, Scorpio. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, we have got Jupiter moving into Taurus in the natal 6th house, coming into contact with the North Node. And this is important for you, Sag, because Jupiter rules your chart, so it rules your 1st house of your appearance and your body. And Jupiter is moving through the 6th house, which is kind of a funky house. It creates an inconjunct to your ascendant. Jupiter also has connections to the 4th house of the home, and it's in the 6th. Here's a piece of advice, okay? First of all, there's gonna be so much work. Don't worry about it, all right? Jupiter going through this 6th house is just daily routine, grinding it out, giving, and where Jupiter goes is where you go. Jupiter is going to be in the 6th house, which is about organization, health, coworkers, your workspace, your daily routines, your habits. After having a year of Jupiter in your 5th house, there could have been a lot of playtime, traveling, you know, creativity, having fun, partying. And now it's going into your 6th house, and there can be this feeling of being like, have I been drinking too much? You know, I've been eating too much. Like, I kind of feel like there's been too much. So there may be this awareness of just kind of needing to kind of get back on track. Jupiter in a sign that is an earth sign is going to be, I think, about your physical daily routines, what you're eating, right? What you know about health, what you know about wellness, and the connections to the 6th house and the 4th house make me feel like getting your workspace organized, everything clean and labeled and put together is the first item of business. The second item of business is having a routine and a way to be able to handle things around the home and the house. You may add a new pet into your life. That is possible with Jupiter going into the 6th house. You may move to a new office space. But I think that some of you guys will get trainers, join new gyms. You're going to learn new health and wellness techniques. Many of you guys are going to be learning new skills for cooking and eating and dieting. And I would advise some of you guys to clean and organize your kitchens or your home as well. I would say that anyway with Saturn being in your 4th house. Some of you guys are having the blues, and I think the sextiles to the 6th means getting things organized and getting on schedule and getting your health on track is really going to help you. Herbal remedies are amazing with Jupiter in the 6th house. I think some of you guys will find some really great practitioners. You may go back to doctors that you haven't seen in a while. Some of you guys may find new practitioners, herbalists, acupuncturists, people who work with Bach essences and massages and things that are more natural, right? Working out outside, grounding your energy can be very, very helpful. Some of you guys might make the decision to invest in building like a gym or a fitness space in your home. And you may be bringing equipment into your home or making some updates in your home and creating that space to be able to work out, or creating a space that you can work from within your home base. The other way of me looking at this is that you're more prone to just showing up and getting a lot done and being of service and helping other people, especially if you're in the service industry. So if you work in hospitality, or maybe like, you know, you work in hair or food or anything like that, anything where you're offering a service, you're just going to be very busy. So some of you guys might launch new businesses, expand your hours, hire new staff, the list goes on. So there's going to be tons of opportunity for work. But the quincunx to your ascendant makes me feel like telling you, you got to watch your health. Like if you're working too much, if there's too much going on, you're going to have to make some adjustments to your schedule. And obviously off the bat, we do see that Jupiter is in a square to Pluto. So Pluto being in the 3rd house is the mind. And I think a lot of you guys are looking and thinking differently about what work is and what work looks like. Some of you guys might realize that you're just really getting sick and tired of the grind, showing up and going to work 24/7, and it feels like Groundhog's Day. So it's incentivizing you to go, well, do I need to get new software? Can I work remotely? You know, is it possible for me to start a new online business? Something that's going to get me out of this rut, right? Mental health is part of the mind, body, spirit. That's something else you're going to learn with Pluto in the 3rd house. So needing to change and transform the way that you communicate, the way that you breathe, the way that you think. Walking, journaling, tapping, breath work, all these things can be really helpful to work through some of this stuff. Really watch the eclipses. We're having another eclipse here at the beginning of May that's in your 12th house, so it's going to shake out some stuff mentally and emotionally. We're going to have another eclipse here in the fall that's going to be in your 6th house, and that might be completing what's been several years of being mindful of, I can't continue these habits. I need to learn, you know, new techniques and new ways. And a lot of you guys will have made a lot of changes in regards to your health in general, okay? Let's take a look and see what the cards have to say for you, Sag. The card that I get for you is the 10 of Wands. How appropriate. Working through burdens, extra responsibility, efforts, stress and exhaustion, duty, obligation, burning out, and struggles. Jupiter in the 6 things. You can't overdo it. If you overdo it, you're going to see, especially with Taurus in the 6th house, issues with your thyroid, issues with your voice. There can be issues with your liver with Jupiter in the 6th house. There can also be this awareness that you're overeating, overdrinking, overworking, oversleeping, overpartying. And you may get to a point where you're just like, I can't keep up, right? Or burnout or exhaustion is so much that it's affecting your ability to think, communicate, and get the job done. So when 10 of Wands comes up, it's kind of saying like, it's okay to let it go, right? So hiring people to help, bringing on staff, you know, asking if you can get an extra day off, giving some of your shifts away, might be things you don't want to do. But what you're learning, right, as the North Node is going into your 5th house is that you have to take care of you. There has to be time for happiness and love and creativity. It can't just be all work and no play. But you might kind of get to the end of your rope here with this Jupiter transit and realize, like, I can't carry on this way. Something's got to give. I have to make a change. but at least you're making a completion in the process, okay? Good luck, Sag. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, we've got Jupiter moving through the sign of Taurus. It's going to be moving into your natal 5th house. And it's going to be in a sister sign. So being that you're a Capricorn sun, moon, or rising, Jupiter being in Taurus is going to form trines to your sun, moon, or rising. In particular for Capricorn risings, Jupiter in the 5th is going to bring an expansion of romance, creativity, and maybe even children. Especially for the next couple of months while the North Node is there. Those of you guys who want to get pregnant, those of you guys who want to launch your own business, those of you who want to take chances, want to try to take more risks, make more investments, have more fun, have more creativity, now is the time. I like Jupiter in the 5th because we focus on all of the things that bring us happiness and bring us joy or pleasure. It's a great time to really develop our own inner child work, to really focus on our talents and to share with others, right? It's about kind of focusing on what brings us happiness. Jupiter has connections to your 12th house, which is hidden or subconscious or foreign places. It also has connections to your 3rd house of communication. So I could see Jupiter going through the 5th as saying, well, my hobbies are now reading tarot or learning about astrology, or I'm writing poetry, or I'm doing something that's more creative and expressive and I want to perform it. I wrote the script, I wrote the story. It can also be about your intuition or your dreams or your visions kind of coming together and playing out on stage. So playing a role, performing, dancing, you know, stand-up is great for Jupiter in the 5th house. It's very comedic. So some of you guys might try some of these things as like a hobby, but it might also mean that you're realizing that your desires are becoming more obvious and they're physically manifesting and you're saying, yes, I want to be in love. Yes, I want to, you know, launch this thing. It's my dream. Or yes, I want to be able to start a family and have a child with Jupiter in the 5th house. I also like the sextiles to Saturn because you're a Saturn ruled chart. So Saturn is actually in Pisces in your 3rd house, working on your communication, your mind, and your exchange skills. And as it sextiles the North Node in Jupiter, it makes me wonder, like, are some of you guys trying to figure out, you know, a new language so you can travel and communicate with people? Are some of you guys learning new writing skills and techniques so you can write TV shows or scripts or books or films? There is a sense of learning something new so that talent can emerge. Now, off the bat, Jupiter comes into a square with Pluto, and this does kind of say, like, look, be mindful of your finances, your resources, and the power that you have financially, right? And as Jupiter comes into the 5th house with the North Node, it's saying, do you like the way that you're making money? Do you enjoy that? Would you like to make money in a more pleasurable way? Are you willing to take risks and create things to potentially bring in more resources? Will you take some of your hard-earned money and put it in a slot machine or put it into, you know, like a lottery or into the stock market, and does something come of it? So there's something changing and transforming about your resources, and maybe you're realizing that you're more focused on the process of creating rather than the outcome in itself. And when you start creating for the right reasons, you're less consumed with the outcome. You're more consumed with being, you know, in the process of expressing yourself, and you may find that it ends up being something that really pays off. Just food for thought. I mean, I have natally Pluto in my 2nd house, and I have my South Node in the 11th and my North Node in the 5th. So I have this aspect natally. When I saw Jupiter go through Aquarius about 2 years ago, right when Saturn entered also into Aquarius, you know, that was a really fun year for me. I was living in Vegas. I got to have fun. I loved going and gambling and doing all those things. But I really felt the pressure of both Saturn, but especially Jupiter, on my North Node in the 5th square my Pluto in the 2nd. And I started thinking about, do I just want to be making money the same way? And do I just keep doing readings? Or do I take chances and try to do other things? And I was really interested in trying to create a podcast that I ended up doing with my friend Mike. We did it for 2 years. But that was what came of that Pluto, you know, Jupiter square. That was me being like, I don't really care if it makes money. If it does, great, but I just want to have fun. And we did it for 2 years, and it ended up being something that ultimately was becoming lucrative, but it was more about being like, this is fun. This is an expression of, you know, what I would like to do and kind of bringing more comedy into this. And I ended up realizing that entire year period, I have to do things that I love doing, right? Regardless of the outcome. One of them was also coming back onto YouTube. So that also ended up proving to be something that was really worth my investment, but it had to come from my passion. So throughout this next year, as you go through this transit, I really recommend to not focus on the financial side of things, focus on what you enjoy doing, using your talent and developing something that may ultimately end up proving to be very valuable down the road. But right now you got to take risks, even if you don't necessarily know where they're going to lead to. But writing, communicating, podcasting, sharing, visualizing, these are all things that are starting to emerge right now, okay? And if you want to launch your own business, this is a great transit for it. If you want to play the lottery, this is a great transit for it, especially like May through August, right? When we see planets go into the 8th house and there's a Venus retrograde, I could see some of you guys really realizing like, wow, I took a chance and this thing is really paying off. But obviously, yeah, new romance, new relationships, and opportunity for children can also come through these transits. The card that I got for you is the 5 of Cups, which is a difficult card because this is a card that does deal with fear of failure, disappointment, feeling abandoned, moving on from sadness, mourning, and discontent. That could be the square from Pluto too. I think there can be a sense of being like, well, this didn't work out, so how is that going to work out, right? Like, do I really want to take a chance on this thing? And my advice would be, don't get stuck here, right? The 5 of Cups can be like, you know, fear of failure or not being able to try again or love again or moving on and like not knowing whether or not it's worth taking the chance. It can also be about mourning what you had. Right? So with Pluto just moving into your 2nd house, there can be a sense of financial things changing for the better, but it can be coming from some more difficult situations and being like, wow, you know, like, yeah, the money came in or the finances kind of improved, but I'm reminiscing about another time in my life and like wanting to get back to that time, especially where things were easier or how things were when you were a child or when you were younger or just like the golden days, right? So, you know, don't get stuck there, you know, don't fear moving forward and taking chances. Don't allow yourself to be so overly worried or consumed about what's happened in the past that it inhibits you moving forward. Everybody's going to have to deal with fear with the Jupiter square Pluto. But for you, it's especially when it comes to security, self-esteem, or resources that you're really challenged. And I would say focus more on where you're going. The North Node is about the future. It's not about the past. Okay? Good luck, Capricorn. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You are going to be seeing Jupiter moving into the sign of Taurus, and it's going to be moving into your natal 4th house, where it's expanding your home, your family, your roots, and also your private life. This is a wild one, obviously, for the fixed signs, but especially for you, Aquarius, because you've got Pluto in your sign, okay? So Jupiter being in the 4th house, it's if you want to expand your home, if you want to move to a bigger home, you know, babies may be born, people may get married, family comes to visit you. There's just a lot of expansion in your inner private world. Some of you guys may move to a foreign place. Some of you guys might move in with a friend. Some of you guys may have friends come and visit you. There might be lots of parties, gatherings, and get-togethers. Jupiter in the 4th house generally brings a good time, right? Now, Jupiter has connections to your 11th house of goals, friends, and others, and it has connections to your 2nd house of resources and money. So those of you guys who have been waiting to say, oh, we're going to paint the deck, we're going to buy a new property, we're going to renovate and add a room, we're going to put something out in the backyard, now would be the time. Especially if you guys are wanting to do like landscaping, or if you're wanting to plant gardens, or if you're wanting to buy property that has like acreage, and you want to bring in horses or you want to bring in agriculture, like this is a wonderful transit because Jupiter does deal with possession of land and it's in the 4th. So some of you guys might be waiting to move into a bigger home or buy your first home or buy a vacation home or sell money, sell a home. Money can come from a home sale. But the challenge is that Jupiter is squaring Pluto in your sign. So Pluto is the focal point of this square. So as Jupiter goes into the 4th, there's expansion and changes within the home and the family. So the home and family is changing, but you may be feeling resistance to that change. You know, I'm wondering, do you have friends moving away? Do you have kids moving out? Do you have, you know, people that are saying that they are, you know, moving closer or coming back to home, but they don't want to move in with you? And, you know, how are you responding to these changes with your family? The Jupiter North Node can also be family members that are like pressuring and telling you like come home or what to do or what you should be doing. There may be positive changes on the horizon for some people in your family, and you might be resistant to that change. So if you have kids that are moving away, you might be like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to be all alone. And Pluto square the nodes is a difficult aspect, but I think Jupiter is really enhancing that. And the truth is that you may get feedback from relatives, people you live with, family, whatever, that you are not so up for the change, that you're resisting the change, right? And Pluto is going to be bringing up, obviously, power control issues, especially because Pluto rules your career. So you may be going through huge changes with your career. Some of you guys are changing careers. Some of you guys are, you know, retiring, or you're relocating. And that's why, because of Jupiter in your 4th house, there is some effect on your professional life. The key here right now with Pluto in your sign is, how are you navigating and moving through some of these changes and transformations, right? Are you resisting change when it comes to control or with your family? Is it difficult for you to get along with some people that you're living with within the household? just some questions that I would have. Because Jupiter has connections to the 11th, I do think that some of you guys may have friends come and visit you, stay with you, or you might move in with them. And I definitely think that there can be more abundance that's coming into your home life. And also decorating and things that you're bringing into the home. Some of you guys are going to be spending money on new plumbing, new kitchens, new bathrooms, or, you know, just building out and doing things agriculturally, like within the yard. Just don't resist change, right? That's a big thing that I really want to tell you guys. Please don't resist change. Some of the changes that are coming, even though you're going to be like, well, how does that affect me, can be really good for other people in the family. And I think it's putting you in a position of learning how to adapt, or learning how to totally change or transform something about your physical body, your appearance, about your demeanor, about your reactions, and learn to embrace this change. Now, for some of you guys, you might go, well, I don't have any problems with family or anything like that. It may mean that you're making the decision to just up and relocate and go somewhere else. You know, Uranus is also in this house. So at some point in the next year, as Jupiter and Uranus come together, you may buy a big piece of land and try to convince all of your family to live together, right? You may go and join a group of other people and start living and working together communally. You might pack your bags and move to another country. I mean, some of these things might happen with Jupiter and Uranus in your 4th house. So some of these things are still kind of coming. So you might see some of the changes happening within your home or your family life this year, making it possible for you to kind of free yourself and be able to really make some of those big decisions next year. So it's all going to be about how you're kind of embracing some of those changes, okay? Let's take a look and see what the cards have to say for you. Can be a wonderful time to go back home and visit family or parents as well. Because, you know, the 4th house is home. It's also ends of situations. So some of you guys may be having to pay money to wrap up a situation with a home, finish a home up before you sell it. You might have to go and help other parents or family members move, or kids move. Can also be a time where there are endings in the family. So there sometimes can be saying goodbye to people, or saying goodbye to places you lived for some time. The card that I got for you is the Justice card. So here's another one that's about finding or bringing in the balance, right? Fairness, law, karma, cause and effect, truth, accountability. And this is so important. Balance is so important with Pluto square the nodes. I think there are some things that are going to be non-negotiable, where you're like, no, I'm not going back there. And there's going to be other things where, you know, family, roommates, relationships are saying, we need this from you. Are you willing to meet us halfway? Right? So some of these changes can actually be good. It can actually dramatically improve your living situation. Don't be resistant to that. And also focus on partners and relationships and people within the family who can help you find this balance. There may be mediators that come in that want to work with you and kind of help kind of cool the flames of some of the intense exchanges you might have with other people. Good luck. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. Jupiter will be moving into your natal 3rd house in the sign of Taurus, which is very important, my Pisces, because Jupiter is your traditional chart ruler. We know that you're ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. So Jupiter in the 3rd house. So this is expanding the mind, communication, getting around, ideas, relationships with siblings, relationships with neighbors, vehicles, even gadgets. So Jupiter moving in the 3rd house, coming into contact with the North Node, makes me feel like you're taking an active step towards learning how to communicate more about your values, right? Learning more about money, listening to financial podcasts, learning more about the global market trends. Some of you guys may make the decision that you're wanting to invest in, really getting serious, buying apps, programs, gadgets, things to help you with your finances. You may make a substantial investment and buy a more expensive vehicle, a more expensive computer, a gadget. You might be spending more money, making your car comfortable so you can go on road trips. There can be a lot more communication and back and forth with a sibling, aunt, uncle, or cousin. And there can be just lots of connecting in your community, going for walks, getting to know your neighbors, really actively participating in what's going on within your neighborhood. In particular, I wonder, this would be really good for some of you guys when it comes to walking or biking more, and going and getting involved in your local markets, or going and, maybe putting your money in a community bank in the 3rd house. Jupiter has connections to your 1st house of your body and your appearance. It also has connections to your 10th house of reputation and career. So the fact that Jupiter is moving into the 3rd gives you a lot of power to get recognition through your thoughts, your ideas, and your words. If you want to write a book, if you want to teach a course, if you want to launch a podcast, if you want to launch a new social media platform, if you want to start a YouTube channel, this is the year to do it. Wonderful transits, especially because there's sextiles to your ascendant. Saturn's in your sign. It's sextiling, so it tells me that you have something to share, some kind of wisdom, some kind of knowledge with groups of people. So the key is that you want to find the right platform, figure out your following, start a group of some kind, and then start putting out your videos, your content, something, and staying on track, staying on schedule, keeping it professional, right? Making it simple and simplified. Taurus might be cooking blogs, financial blogs, talking about spirituality, talking about awareness, talking about astrology, talking about diet, beauty, right? Wellness. So if you like any of these topics and you've been thinking about starting a blog or a platform where you can bring in residual income, hopefully through some of these topics by creating content or videos, my recommendation is do it. I would definitely do this. I would probably wait until, after this eclipse. You are going to see a new moon that's going to come through Taurus. So maybe after that and after the Mercury retrograde, for everybody, remember, Mercury is going retrograde through this particular sign. So we want to wait until the eclipse happens today and then the retrograde so we can kind of figure out what we're going to launch. But you have a lot of support here. And I feel like especially getting into, businesses that's going to be about writing, marketing, teaching, sharing, and diversifying some of the ways that you can make money, or really kind of highlighting some of your communication talents. This is a wonderful, wonderful transit for you. So you're going to be expanding the mind and communication. If you have to buy a new vehicle, please don't do it now during the retrograde. Wait till after the retrograde and after the eclipse. That's a better time to do it. Also, I think this is going to be really amazing for just learning how to communicate it more, better in general. I think you're going to slow down, be really mindful of how you communicate, really focusing on your tone and how you're coming across and the information that you're presenting. And I could see a lot of people designing websites and business cards and social media aesthetics. Some of you guys also might decide that you want to start getting more involved in doing some social media management. So you might start offering this service for other people and working for them and managing some of their social media as well. So that's another way that this can play out. Now, the challenge is that you're seeing this come into a square with Pluto off the bat. So it's about whether or not you're letting fear get in the way, whether or not there are some self-sabotaging patterns or habits that are going on. There can be a lot of stress mentally or emotionally right now with Pluto in the 12th house. And it can feel like a little bit of a crisis of faith. And I would say the 3rd house writing, blogging, singing, you know, communicating, sharing can be a really wonderful way to kind of get outside of your mind right now and not allow yourself to get too fixated on what's not working. And maybe you'll find that through just journaling and writing, it's going to give you a little bit more peace. And then you realize like there's something coming of that of value that you can start sharing with people. But watch for the mental stress, because this is kind of mutable type houses. So there has to be something that lets go. It can be a fear before the floodgates open, and then all of a sudden you can share. Maybe you are afraid to be on camera. Maybe you're afraid for people to see you. Maybe you're afraid because you don't know how to use cameras and lenses and editing and all of these things, but you're going to realize like, I need to learn how to do this, or I need to find somebody who can help me so I can really kind of start digging deep into expressing myself more and being able to share some of my ideas with everyone. Okay. So let's take a look and see what the cards have to say. The card that I get for you is the Star. So this is cool because this does talk about Aquarius. But this is about healing and hope, renewal, miracles, rejuvenation, faith, purpose, spirituality, positivity, healing, and inner clarity, which I love with Pluto and Aquarius in your 12th house. It's about kind of finding that and being able to put it to words. This is about community. This is about healing, hope, and regeneration, and the healing that comes after kind of the breakdown. So some of you guys just might be super stressed, kind of just mentally, emotionally going through it, and there may be some clarity that comes through journaling or writing, and I think that may be the very beginning process of realizing that you have a really unique talent for being able to share your ideas with the world. And so what you're going through now may really help support other people, or what you learn, or what you're writing about, or what you end up sharing. You never know who that's going to end up, you know, affecting in a positive way, and how you can relay some of your experiences to other people about how you overcame some of these challenges. So I love this card coming up for you. All right, guys, well, that was my long speech about Jupiter going into Taurus. Keep an eye out for this. We're going to talk about this more on the horoscopes for the month of May. We're also going to be touching on this next month as we get closer to the transit. I'm glad you're watching this today because you're getting a little sneak peek of what this energy is going to kind of feel like with the sun and the moon in a square to Pluto. We're still in the eclipse energy, and over the next couple days, planets are going to dance with the North Node. So it's about really embodying what it means to get grounded, to be in our bodies, how we feel, the physical changes that we need to overcome fear. So please find ways to ground your energy out. Let me know, are you excited? Is this your Jupiter return? Is Jupiter going to be in contact with personal planets in Taurus? Do you remember what happened 12 years ago as you went through some of these transits? I'd love to hear. Please don't forget to make sure that you give me a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed. Leave me your comments below. I'd love to hear how you guys are feeling with this energy. And you can come back to this video throughout this next year and see how some of this stuff is continuing to kind of play out. You might want to rewind back and write some of those dates down as well, but we will touch on it in the future. I will see you guys all very soon. I'll be back here tomorrow doing live readings. You can catch me here at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to post the link, so if you guys want to join me for those readings, we are going to be doing live astrology readings, so I recommend signing up in advance if you guys want to talk about the eclipse or anything else, the Mercury retrograde, all of that stuff that's starting over the next 48 hours. It's going to keep rolling, that intensity. So if you need a reading, find me there. Otherwise, I will see all of you guys very soon. Please enjoy the rest of this week, and I will see you next time. Take care.